Yeah. I don't want my grandchildren. That's all. That was my beef. That's all.
First Amendment.
I do too. I fought for that. Yeah. Right or wrong. Wait for the investigations and come over. It's all.
All right, cool. Hey, what up, Harvey Waldbanger? Hey, thank you for letting me know. What up, Christian? Can you guys hear me now? We're watching Ricardo News and Status Coop News right now. They're over there in Maine doing interviews with locals. It's where Donald Trump's Gestapo goons murdered another innocent person.
No, Boston. I'm actually South Boston, my thing, and then 20 years and all the.
Hey, what up, Christian? What up, Harvey? How are you guys doing today? Thanks for tapping in. Hope you guys are doing well. So Wednesday, July 15th, 4:50 p.m. Pacific Standard Time over here in Los Angeles. It's hot AF outside, so I'm going to post up for the next 2 or 3 hours and just stream stuff. Have a little YouTubeville watch party so we can all interact and share our opinions. But for now, we'll just watch this, and then there's a bunch of other stuff we'll tap into.
Protest, it's your right to do that. However,
how are ways you would see, like, say you had an issue and you wanted to protest, or you wanted to raise your voice? How would you?
Well, I wouldn't wear a mask and exercise my rights, but I'm not gonna do obscenities and obstruct other people's business in the town. I'm a very intelligent guy, and like I said, I went on all 5 networks yesterday, and I said the same thing. And we kind of have like, yeah, this sucks what happened. Everybody's upset about it. He was apparently legal and that, and I had a friend that witnessed the whole thing and wouldn't go on camera with the shots and the bodies and everything. But our city, Biddeford, Saco, State Police, FBI, did everything right. And then they all showed up, and you got no right, I guess. Do they have a right to walk to a senator's office, bang on the door? I guess they think they do. And wear a mask and hide.
It could be like the emotions and the anger, because this is like something we've seen across the country.
Same thing. It happened in Houston last week, and I get it all. And even now, Trump said last week, I am a Trump supporter, but they stopped the traffic stops and he restarted. And the Minnesota thing, we don't want Minnesota here. You know what I mean? I got it. And, but exercise your rights, protest peacefully. That's all. Wait for the facts to come out. And things haven't been good for us. I agree. I'm not an ICE agent. I was military and then and I'm an intelligent. But I don't want to bring I told Joanne, I don't want to bring my daughter down here every Wednesday night. I live right there. I didn't bring her down tonight. I don't want to see the fuck ice songs.
Yeah, it's people using their voice in different ways, different levels of it, right?
Their First Amendment.
I wanted to ask you, sir, also, you mentioned you were a veteran, and you also said you don't really support ICE. You mentioned you support the local police, and...
I don't know if I don't like a lot of things that's going on, but there are investigations and criminal justice, and I worked that too when I got out of the military.
Hey, what's up, Leslie? How's it going? What's up, Glenn Levy? Looks like you got a early start to drinking your Kool-Aid out there, huh? I hope you're staying cool, staying safe out there.
And then they come down here, and I had 4 death threats. But that's all right. I said, bring it on. I'm 71.
What's your name again, sir?
Kevin Walker. Sure.
Thank you for your time and thank you for your service. All right.
very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we're gonna head up to the memorial where Johan, right? Johan was killed. But please smash the like button, share this live stream, and thank you to the viewers at Midas Touch for watching. If you appreciate the work we are doing here at Status Quo, and you want us to continue this work as the leading independent outlet in the country covering this deadly fascism on the ground.
Yeah, guys, go subscribe to Status Coop News. These guys are the best independent media out there.
Jersey, Chicago, Minneapolis, North Carolina.
All right, let's go check out what Donald Trump had to say today. All right, let's go into the queue here. All right, this is what we got in the queue right here. All right, so there's all kinds of stuff. I did an all-nighter with hearings. I watched that Todd Blanche hearing. That shit was crazy. Yeah, Todd Blanche is another Donald Trump stooge that is unqualified. So that guy needs to be removed. He needs to not be confirmed. All right, so let's do a little. Let's see what we got here in the queue. I think it's starting from. We already watched so many hearings that have happened that I need to catch up on. All right, so we already watched all this stuff before. So there's this hearing. These hearings happened yesterday. So there's this hearing. Like what I'm gonna package. We're gonna I don't think it's gonna happen today, but we're gonna check out this hearing and a Senate Armed Forces hearing. We'll do that sometime during the week. There's just so much stuff going on that it's that stuff's gonna have to take the back burner. We watched the Kevin Warsh hearing yesterday. Let's see what else we got. I think he had another one today. We'll check that out probably. And then there's a hearing on med school and DEI. So another hearing about Kelly Loeffler. Some other couple other hearings of Amy Coney Barrett. But we don't have time to watch all those. We'll watch those throughout the week. All right, let's go. But for now, we got a bunch of clips. We got John Ossoff. We got Sheldon Whitehouse. We got Jamie Raskin ripping into Trump. We got Raphael Warnock. We got him ripping into Trump because Trump's trying to go after him. We got AOC. Who else we got? We got Joe Neguse throwing it down. Of course, we got the Donald Trump Jeffrey Epstein video that we like to play every once in a while for the MAGA cult members. What else we got over here? What's this Raskin one over here all about? All right. No, and there's this Trump interview on Fox that I guess we'll check out. I don't know. I really can't stand hearing Trump speak anymore. Let's see. We got this Jim McGovern throws it down on daylight savings while prices soar, so he's going to rip into Trump as well. And then these are all a bunch of hearings that happened today. We got Jay Clayton. What else we got? We got the governor from Maine making a statement. We'll check those out. We got Neguse throws down a press conference. There's a Russell Vought hearing that happened. What's this? A CDC hearing. Foreign affairs hearing. We're not going to watch any hearings right now, though. We're just going to watch clips of politicians, particularly politicians ripping into Trump. We got Donald Trump did some kind of Pennsylvania thing with Pete Kegsbreath. I guess we'll check that out. We got Wisconsin State Senate Carpenter says ICE is sending. So Wisconsin senator rips into ICE. Senator Durbin with the Epstein survivors doing a press conference. The Senate Judiciary Dems hold a press conference for the Epstein survivors after the Todd Blanche hearing. We got JD Vance. I guess we'll start it off with the good guys. Or you know what? Yeah, I can't stand Trump. Let's go check out Let's start it off with Ossoff. Let's start it off with Ossoff. Ossoff is the man. All right, here we go. This is John Ossoff this morning. And all this stuff is stuff that happened as of today. So this is all fresh. This is the homie Carlo right here. What up, Carlo? It's hot AF. We're chilling in the AC right now. We got it at 72 degrees, so it's nice and cool in here. But outside, it's like a sauna. I went to the 7-Eleven to get some snacks, some provisions. I got some American Spirit cigarettes, some Ruffle chips. There, I got some snacks for these series. I got some bog loads. Let's see. We got some. Get your snacks out, guys. We'll be posted up for the next 2 hours. Got some Ruffles barbecue. What else we got some chili mangoes. These are fire right here. Chili mangoes. All right, here we go. This is John Ossoff right here, guys. Let's get this party started. Please hit the like button. Thank you.
He does not care that his pursuits are unpopular with the American people and a drag on his party's re-election chances and in many parts of the country. He doesn't care that his efforts have failed over and over again. He'll just keep improvising new ways to push his agenda. And some of the documents under consideration for release Thursday relate to Georgia's 2020 results and the Senate runoffs that followed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? What's up, Aloha Kitty? What's up, Richard? What's up, let's see. Don't recommend, guys. Just talking some nonsense. What's up, Almost High? How are you guys all doing?
To people familiar with the plans. That suggests Trump may use his address to call into question the elections of Georgia's Democratic Senators John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock ahead of a crucial midterm election in that state. How insane is that? I wonder what John Ossoff has to say about all of that. Joining me now is Democratic Senator John Ossoff of Georgia. He's a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Okay, there's so much to be said here, but why do you think Trump is giving this speech and why now?
So before we get to this matter of the president potentially declaring sitting senators illegitimate, just take a step back.
Yes, go ahead.
And look at the situation. You've got the American public broadly furious with the president for war and tariffs and healthcare cuts that are making everything more expensive. This palpable anger that he doesn't care about the cost of living crisis. He's more concerned with lining his own pockets. And so now he's pivoting with the election just a few months away from ballroom obsession to election conspiracy theory obsession. This is politically disastrous for Republicans in Georgia. Remember, the most popular Republican elected official in Georgia is Governor Brian Kemp. He's popular precisely because he didn't help Donald Trump steal the 2020 election. Remember that it's our Republican Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, that Donald Trump badgered and bullied to, quote, find the votes Donald Trump needed to win a state that Donald Trump had lost. Donald Trump tried to commit voter fraud in Georgia in 2021. My opponent, Mike Collins, on the other hand, is a dyed-in-the-wool election denier, Trump loyalist, Trump puppet who launched his general election campaign reaffirming.
Hey, what's up, Captain Homer? Good to see you. Hey, that Todd Blanche hearing was wild, huh? Man, that guy got exposed for his incompetence and all his lies.
Commitment to the big lie that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. And if folks want to help me defeat this MAGA fanatic congressman in Georgia, it's electjon.com.
What's up,
Okay, so
Aloha
let's
Kitty?
go back to Georgia as you just out.
Hey, what's up?
You've lived
What up, Aloha Kitty? Good to see you.
Trump is. It's also, he just went in and took voting machines from Fulton County, sent Tulsi Gabbard in there. We all remember her lurking behind the pillars there. Why is he obsessed with Georgia? Why?
In my view, he's obsessed with Georgia because he can't get over the fact that it was black voters and black political power who were instrumental to his defeat in Georgia and in a number of crucial battleground states. But look, there's talk that he might try to declare me and Raphael Warnock illegitimate senators. Obviously, the president has no power to do that, but he does have the power to try to intimidate people He's demonstrated his will to abuse power. I expect him to use whatever he puts out there on Thursday as a pretext either for some attempted unconstitutional use of federal power to interfere in the election, or to give his proxies and loyalists in state and local jurisdictions some cover for whatever they might attempt, or to lay the groundwork for challenging the result. And the bottom line is that this is a real and live threat to voting rights in the United States right now, and perhaps the most significant we've faced since the 1960s. And I'm asking folks again to help me defend voting rights and get out the vote in Georgia at electjohn.com.
So you talked about something I think is really important for people to remember. This speech is not just a speech and then it ends. This speech is a part of an ongoing effort for him to delegitimize, disenfranchise voters, and to spread conspiracy theories. So let's just dig into what you just talked about what could be next, because you've been paying close attention to this. He gives this speech. First of all, are you worried that he's going to mention Georgia and try to push conspiracy theories out there? Potentially?
Look, his obsession with Georgia hurts Georgia Republicans. I mean, this is not a political winner for Congressman Mike Collins. Mike Collins, if he knows what's good for him, he already has to defend voting to double health insurance premiums for 1 million Georgians. I doubt he wants to spend the next 4 months dealing with Donald Trump's conspiracy theories about the 2020 election. But putting the politics aside, I'm concerned about the defense of voting rights in Georgia. I'm concerned about what Donald Trump abusing his federal power may do to try to interfere with the process or cast doubt on the results. And that's why I'm asking people to help me to defend voting rights and to make sure that we can empower every eligible voter in Georgia to navigate whatever obstacles are put in their path or whatever misinformation they're served.
So where does it go after Thursday? Because this is important for people to understand. This is just part of laying, could be, we don't know what's in the speech exactly, but everything we've seen from reporting could be laying the predicate here to do further investigations, to seize more ballots. Where do you think it goes?
I think that he is trying to create some pretext for an abuse of federal power, trying to create cover for state and local allies to get up to no good in those jurisdictions, and try to lay the groundwork for some kind of potential challenge to the results. That's what I think his goal is. But I think they're divided within the White House and the administration on this. And here's what I would say. If you're working in the Trump administration right now, if you're, say, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and you see what's about to happen, that they're going to selectively declassify some nonsense to try to lay the foundation for some kind of mischief, this is the last chance to jump ship and speak out, because you will be forever tainted by your association with these kinds of shenanigans.
You talked about, I just played a clip at the beginning of the show. This is the glamour of the Senate, where you're asked by reporters questions in a parking lot. I think that must have been in a parking lot. But you talked about having conversations with your Republican colleagues who think, and I don't want to put, you basically said that Trump has lost it around this particular topic. Tell us more about it. I know you're not going to name names, you're welcome to, about those conversations. What do Republicans tell you privately about this particular topic, this conspiracy theory pushing?
Let me say, it's not even new that in private conversations, a huge number of my Republican colleagues have contempt for the president. They view him as somebody who's adverse to their own interests. They know that he's torpedoing GOP chances in these midterm elections, but I don't think they're going to do anything about it. We should not hold out hope for a sudden outbreak of courage and integrity among elected Republicans in Washington. He still has the GOP in his grip, and in particular, his most dedicated loyalists like Congressman Mike Collins, my opponent, who is a known and notorious bigot and anti-Semite, who was only a congressman because his daddy was a congressman, who Brian Kemp worked so hard to try to deny the Republican nomination because he's so extreme, because he's so unpalatable, and because as Donald Trump spirals into conspiracy land, Congressman Mike Collins is going to follow him right along.
You sit on the Senate Intelligence Committee. You're going to have the opportunity to question Jay Clayton in a hearing tomorrow. That feels quite awkward for Jay Clayton, given this speech on Thursday. Not our problem. What are you going to push him on? What are you going to press him on, given all of this, everything we've discussed?
Look, the office of the Director of National Intelligence right now is tainted. It's tainted by Tulsi Gabbard's misconduct when she went down to Georgia and, in her own words, at the request of the president, oversaw the execution of a search warrant on a sensitive election site. A massive abuse of that office. It's tainted by Bill Pulte and what Bill Pulte is doing in that office right now. And I sat down today with Jay Clayton to talk about his nomination, and I'll tell you candidly that he said nothing that allayed my concerns that he would be yet another puppet, that he said nothing that demonstrated any kind of will or any kind of real commitment to the independence that we need from the nation's senior most intelligence officer. He'll have another chance to make his case tomorrow in the hearing.
Did you ask him about this potential of releasing all of this, declassifying all of this information in advance of Thursday?
You can rest assured that tomorrow I and a number of Democrats on the Intelligence Committee will be pressing him on related issues.
Senator John Ossoff, thank you as always.
Thank
Thanks
you
for being here.
Oh yeah. So the Todd, that was Ossoff right there, throwing down some facts. But yeah, tomorrow's gonna be round 2 of Todd Blanche. He's gonna get grilled again, like a hot dog on a George Foreman grill. You know, all these MAGA cult members are all incompetent losers. All right, let's move on. Let's go see what else we got in the queue. All right, so we checked out John Ossoff. What up, everyone? Hope you're all having a good Wednesday out there. Let's go see what's up with the homie Sheldon Whitehouse. You know what? I think something's going down right now.
You know, if you look at the
Let's see. So they're at let's go to the memorial real quick. It looks pretty cool. We'll go back to the queue. This is the memorial right here in Maine.
ever Biddeford will not.
So like Jolly Good Ginger and a bunch of other people, they bought like thousands of dollars worth of flowers to put at the memorial where the guy was executed in cold blood by Trump's Gestapo goons.
Our sweet son Mainers will, I'm sorry, it's covered by some flowers. Mainers will take up, and we won't stop until all people can breathe freely. Johann Sebastian Guerrero, say his name. Want to talk to him?
See if he All right, guys. We are going to wrap up in a bit. We got another.
So that's the memorial. So that's Status Coup News, guys. Check them out. They got the best independent news regarding like Donald Trump's corruption and crimes against humanity. All right, let's go check out. Let's go back to the queue over here. Thomas Massie threw down today on the Senate floor. We'll have to tap into Thomas Massie. But let's go back to where we were on the queue, and then we'll start scrolling up. And everything that I'm gonna play is stuff that happened as of like today. So this is all fresh stuff from politicians.
Look at this.
Let's go see what's up with. All right, here's Sheldon Whitehouse right here.
An inquiry into, and that's the more.
All right, this is titled, "How Much Baggage Will Republicans Carry for Trump? Senator Whitehouse Looks Ahead to Blanche Hearing." So this came out 23 hours ago, so this is pretty fresh. I like Sheldon Whitehouse.
Former defense attorney turned acting attorney general will come before the Senate Judiciary Committee to make his job permanent. By some accounts, Blanche is on a glide path to confirmation, but there are a lot of things senators should ask this guy who in just 4 short months has become one of the worst attorneys general in my lifetime, if not the worst. They could also ask about his role in the creation of a slush fund for insurrectionists and an IRS audit shield for the Trump family. And that might be one of the most interesting lines of questioning tomorrow, because on the eve of his hearing, a federal judge has accused Blanche of professional, unethical, and sanctionable behavior for his role in that Trump IRS lawsuit that purported to create the slush fund. In a 56-page judicial order yesterday, Judge Kathleen Williams rebuked that lawsuit, referred the lawyer who brought the suit to the Florida bar, and announced she was forwarding a decision to the New York bar for its ongoing investigation of Blanche. She wrote of the entire thing, quote, "This was an attempt to use the court to provide some legitimacy to an agreement to confer immunity to people and entities affiliated with the president." The judge added, quote, "This lawsuit was not brought to vindicate rights. It was brought to manipulate judicial process to pursue benefits unavailable in litigation." Senator Sheldon Whitehouse sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee. He joins me now. I want to start with Judge Williams' order because it is so rare that a judge issues something like this. The case itself stunk to high heaven from the beginning. It seemed obviously pretextual, the settlement. They've had to sort of walk back from it. But here's a guy who's going to come before the community bar to be the most important lawyer in the country, and a federal judge had just said that the bar should investigate him for possibly disbar him.
Yeah, and it's a little bit like what the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee did with Emil Bovee, who also had a judicial inquiry into contempt pending. And rather than wait until that was resolved, they jammed him through before it could be resolved. So they didn't have to know the result of it. I'm worried that that will be the case here. But this is quite a big deal. This opened with what I think is the first allegation in American history of something called fraud upon the court by the Department of Justice. And it wasn't a ridiculous or trivial accusation. It was an accusation that a federal judge reopened the case to do an inquiry into. And that's the background to the decision that you described, which did three key things. First, it said that the Trump side of this fake collusive case was in fact collusive and brought in bad faith as cover for a sweetheart deal. So that's why the Trump lawyer got sent to the Florida bar for sanctions. The weird thing here in this case is that the Department of Justice never filed a pleading, as if they were trying to avoid any hook that would give the judge authority over the Department of Justice. A little bit of sort of consciousness of guilt that this was a bad, crooked deal. And the judge went there anyway. First of all, she talked about collusion, and collusion takes two. So that obviously brings in the Department of Justice. She also described violation of Department of Justice policies and conduct incompatible with the duties of Department of Justice attorneys. And then, as you mentioned, she ordered that her decision be transmitted to the New York bar to look at as a disciplinary matter over Blanche. So really remarkable day, really shameful day in the Department of Justice's history.
I think that there's no shortage of reasons of disqualifying actions by Todd Blanche, in my humble opinion, if you were asking me where I come from and how I would vote. I think going to interview Ghislaine Maxwell and then essentially apparently being a party to what seems like an insanely corrupt bargain to move her to a prison she wasn't even qualified for under Bureau of Prisons itself is disqualifying. That said, here's how I think
whatever side deals were cut with her. But go ahead.
Exactly. Yes, which we don't know. But here's how I read what's going to happen. And you tell me what you think. You know the folks in the U.S. Senate better. They can basically afford to lose 2 votes if Mitch McConnell's not voting. And they're going to, Cassidy and Cornyn and Tillis are going to be team players, and they're going to vote for Blanche because they want to let Susan Collins, along with Lisa Murkowski, vote no so that Susan Collins can go back to the voters of Maine and say, look at me, I'm independent Susan Collins, that I voted against Todd Blanche, and you can't pigeonhole me, and I'm not a partisan. And Cassidy and Tillis and Cornyn, who should vote their conscience here, will all vote yes so that she could do that. What do you think of that as the plan?
Well, that may be the White House's version of the plan, or the Republican judiciary members' version of the plan. But you got to go back to what I call the Blazing Saddles scenario. Remember the movie Blazing Saddles? Yes. Where the governor has his cronies around him and he said, I don't know about the rest of you boys, but we got to look out for our own phony baloney jobs. So you have all these Republicans coming into an election in November with a president who is an anchor around their necks, who is dead weight, full of baggage that might cost them their majority and their seats. And the question is, how much baggage are they willing to carry for Trump into this election? This is a terrible vote for Republicans. The record of Blanche is disgraceful, and the trajectory of it going forward implies that he will be even worse and create more scandal and more corruption and more mischief between now and November. So how many of them are willing to separate from that in order to protect their own skins? And I'd add to your list Senator Moody from Florida, who is neck and neck in a tied race with Alex Vindman, a super qualified former military officer, witness in Trump 1 impeachment. You'll remember him from that. He's raised $8.5 million in the last quarter. So she's got to be looking around saying, oh my gosh, how much baggage can I carry into this Florida race? I think that's going to be true of a lot of them. So watch out for look out for your own phony baloney job scenario.
Yeah, Ashley Moody was a vote. She was one of I think there was like 6 or 7 Republicans who voted when you guys were having reconciliation on the.
Look, if there's one thing that is clear.
Oops, I accidentally hit the wrong button. But yeah, Ashley, that Moody chick, that Moody senator from
An inquiry into.
Yeah, that Moody senator from Florida. Yeah, she's getting voted out this midterms for sure. She is definitely unqualified. I don't even know how she got voted in.
That's the background to the decision that you described, which did 3 key things. First, it said that the Trump side of this.
Yeah, the MAGA movement's pretty much dead. It's over, guys. The MAGA movement is done, and it's going to be official this midterms. All these MAGA politicians are going to lose their seats. All these states are turning blue. Texas, Georgia, Florida.
Collusive case was in fact collusive and brought in bad faith as cover for a sweetheart deal. So that's why the Trump lawyer got sent to the Florida bar for sanctions. The weird thing here in this case is that the Department of Justice never filed a pleading, as if they were trying to avoid any hook that would give the judge authority over the Department of Justice.
Right.
A little bit of sort of consciousness of guilt that this was a bad, crooked deal. And the judge went there anyway. First of all, she talked about collusion, and collusion takes 2. So that obviously brings in the Department of Justice. She also described violation of Department of Justice policies and conduct incompatible with the duties of Department of Justice attorneys. And then, as you mentioned, she ordered that her decision be transmitted to the New York bar to look at as a disciplinary matter over Blanche. So really remarkable day, really shameful day in the Department of Justice's history.
I think that there's no shortage of reasons of disqualifying actions by Todd Blanche, in my humble opinion. If you were asking me where I come from and how I would vote, I think going to interview Ghislaine Maxwell and then essentially apparently being a party to what seems like an insanely corrupt bargain to move her to a prison she wasn't even qualified for under Bureau of Prisons.
Let's go back to the memorial over there in Maine real quick. Looks like Status Coop's doing an interview. I like watching the interviews with the locals.
And they think they're above everybody. And it's being shown, and there's a right and a wrong way of doing everything, everything.
Safer with him here.
Status Coop
we don't
News.
feel safer, that he's not here. He was causing no harm to anybody, We're no safer with him gone. Justice needs to be served.
What does accountability look like to you?
The ICE agents that shot him need to be held accountable for this, and there needs to be, I think, jail time served for this. This is murder in our streets.
What would you like to see from elected officials?
I want them to stand up for us, and they're not. They're not here. They're not. We need to see change in them. They need to be here for us, especially at this time.
Sorry, it's all, we've been in Chicago, we've been in Minneapolis, every time there's something like this, and it's always strong words, but no action.
There's never any actions. We're right back to where we were, Minneapolis, Texas. These are innocent people, and there is no change, and I don't know when there is going to be, but it needs to happen.
You mentioned you live 100 feet away. Have you gotten any answers from your local officials or anything, any accountability answers or anything?
No, not that I've seen, no. And I mean, all that the public sees is.
Hey, what's up, Ronnie? So you're one of those people that, so you're one of those low IQ people that Trump says they love him?
So, and you can see there's other cameras like up in this intersection.
Yeah, they say that those are sensors for the emergency department, but I mean, every one of our intersections have those what to me look like cameras. But
Are you hoping to see more footage or more from what happened here in this intersection from video?
Well, I just I think that the community deserves the answers, and all these people out here protesting, and then you get all the other half talking all this stuff when. If it is true, then it's true, but there ain't no swaying them any other way, and it's unfortunate, but, this kid didn't deserve to die. I think that's the point being, you know what I mean? The cruelty, right? 30 feet behind us.
Blood stains are still on the ground.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Damn, that's so sad. The bloodstains from the guy they murdered are still on the street.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you for your time. Nice to meet you guys. Yeah, I know.
You guys, you're the voice for the people, obviously we can speak, but you put it out for the public. Like you said, you've been to DC, you've been all over, and I'm sure you both got families, but, this is important. And, that's why my kids are here, they need to see this. They need to see this. This is, it's just unfortunate.
Absolutely. We do have families, and that's why we make sacrifices, because we know getting this information out is important to change the direction for the future for our kids. And that's why we make those sacrifices.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you for your time, buddy. One more time.
Michael.
Thank you so much, buddy.
I'm going to be here for the rest of the week, so
I'm sure we'll see you, buddy.
All right, let's go back to the Sheldon White House. Just wanted to see that interview. That's Status Coup News. They're live right now if you guys want to go check them out. But I'm just gonna be going through the queue, checking out some politicians and what they had to say today. All right, let's go back to Sheldon White House over here. Kinds of stuff fresh on the queue right here. All this stuff happened today. All right, we're back at Sheldon.
Itself is disqualifying. That said, here's how I think
whenever side deals were cut with her. But go ahead.
Exactly. Yes, which we don't know. But here's how I read what's going to happen. And you tell me what you think. You know the folks in the U.S. Senate better. They can basically afford to lose 2 votes if Mitch McConnell's not voting. And they're going to, Cassidy and Cornyn and Tillis are going to be team players, and they're going to vote for Blanche.
No, you're wrong, Brian. What it is if you let TPUSA terrorist organization get a hold of your kids, there is no future. If you let these MAGA meat-riding politicians continue, not getting voted out, that'll be no future. All the whole MAGA movement has no future. As a matter of fact, it's dead. It's over.
Members version of the plan.
So at this point, if you're still a MAGA cult member, you have no future.
Remember the movie Blazing Saddles?
Yes.
Where the governor has his cronies around him? Is disgraceful, and the trajectory.
All right, let's move on. So that was Sheldon White House. Let's go see what else we got. Let's go see what Warnock has to say.
Proceed.
and Georgia is ground zero. Can you believe it? Donald Trump is drumming up long debunked conspiracy theories.
All right, this is from Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock. He's the one that Donald Trump's trying to go after, because Trump's trying to go after Georgia's elections to rig the elections.
Donald Trump is drumming up long debunked conspiracy theories about the 2020 election yet again. He is attacking our democracy, and Georgia is ground zero. Can you believe it? 2020 was 6 years ago, and Trump is president right now. So why is he still talking about this egregious lie? The real reason goes well beyond his fragile ego. It's all part of his goal to hold on to power at any cost. Let me break it down for you. Donald Trump lost Georgia in 2020. That's not my opinion, it's a fact. The votes were counted, recounted, audited, and litigated. He lost. But this really isn't about 2020, it's about 2026. He is trying to sow doubt on the integrity of our elections in Georgia so that he can create the pretext to interfere in 2026. It's happening right now, before our very eyes. As we speak, the president is trying to change the rules to tilt the playing field in his favor. He already seized ballots in Fulton County. He already tried to access election worker data. He already forced his allies to redraw the maps across the country. So this is not hypothetical, it is happening right now. This president is a liar, a cheater, and a fraud.
Hey, what's up, Josh? Thanks.
And
Appreciate
he
it.
has shown us over and over again that staying in power matters more to him than anything else. He's not focused on the country. He's focused on himself. So let me be crystal clear. Donald Trump can spend every day of his presidency talking about 2020 if he wants. I'll spend every day doing the job the people of Georgia elected me to do. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. Stay vigilant. If you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button. I post new videos every week. Thank you for watching.
That's funny hearing a politician say hit the subscribe button. All right, that was Raphael Warnock. Let's see what AOC has to say.
But just describe, take a
Other activity
So this is AOC from earlier today.
are continuing to lead to the death of innocent people that have nothing to do with their operation or intention. So I think we have to really rein them in.
Councilor, where do you can respond to some of the concerns that Democratic leaders have had about the endorsement strategy of some of the progressives? We saw what happened in Maine with the Grant Plattner getting behind and imploding after Bernie Sanders' endorsement, concerns about Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan, as well as some of the House races as well. What do you say to them that the progressives like you are making it harder for Democrats to win back the majority?
Well, I mean, listen, I think that there are folks that, we want to talk about what's happened in Maine. And I think, again, I didn't even endorse in that race, but there was also an implosion of other candidacies as well. And so I think that we are all on the same page where the single most important priority is winning a majority in November. And we want to make sure that we are supporting the candidate that is best positioned to do that, period. I think that the data shows in Michigan that Abdul El-Sayed is best positioned to put Democrats over the top in November. That's a big reason why I'm supporting him. And there are times when sometimes we have to put our own personal biases aside and look at the facts. And the facts are, in Michigan, I think Abdul El-Sayed has demonstrated himself to be a profoundly strong candidate. Sometimes that means, from a progressive perspective, sometimes there are some races where a more moderate candidate is more well positioned to win in a certain seat. And sometimes that means that sometimes the candidate that happens to be more progressive.
Hey, what up, Christian? All right, sounds good. Have a good rest of your day.
Take a look at that, and I think in Michigan, I think Abdul El-Sayed is that candidate. But these debates are normal in the party. This is what a primary process is for, and we resolve this through the primary election, and then we all come together and support whoever the nominee is.
Why not? There are concerns about Abdul El-Sayed and some of those other progressives alienating swing voters, moderate voters, people who may vote for Republicans. Why don't you share that concern?
I don't think people have really made the forceful case outside of his identity, to be honest with you. And I don't accept that. I don't accept.
Being Muslim?
Yeah. I think, keep it to the issues if we want to say what specifically it is, but I don't ascribe to the idea that a Muslim can't win, that a woman can't win, that a white person can't win. I don't ascribe to these ideas. I ascribe to what a person is talking about. And Abdul El-Sayed is not taking corporate money. He wants every American in Michigan to have health care. He wants their wages to go up. He is endorsed by the United Auto Workers, one of the most powerful unions in America, and certainly the most powerful union in the state of Michigan. So working people are standing with him. And I think that's that's the case.
Why did you get behind Graham Plattner when the rest of the left, not people on the left did?
Yeah, I think that my considerations on endorsements are somewhat, I think, what do they call it? Famously idiosyncratic. And I think that it's a combination to me, of factors. And so I think that certainly there's where people stand on issues, but it's how they run. And I think that, again, differences are fine. Differences are part of the process. So it's how we sort all this out.
Are you going to endorse the main Senate primary now?
I don't know if I am, but listen.
Cruz, Hawley, and Kennedy? Yeah, the only thing those guys are good at is laughing at. Those people are delusional.
As is the case in every other race, whoever is the nominee, I fully intend on supporting in whatever way they seek or need that support.
We saw where Democratic leadership came down on this Massey amendment this week, but just describe, particularly since you've gotten to the Hill, the movement among the Democratic Party on that issue and towards not funding Israel.
Yeah, I think it's not just the movement within the Democratic Party. I think this is how Americans are moving. I think that the genocide in Gaza has been so affecting to many Americans for two reasons. One, the very basic humanitarian issue that is being live streamed on everyone's phone in real time over 2 to 3 years. And then there's also, I think, and I expressed this at the time to then former President Biden, this is in a way, in the way that Vietnam was the first televised war that really prompted a lot of people to see what the realities of war were like. I think that many people are now seeing where their tax dollars are going to. And when we don't have health care, and when our bridges and roads are falling apart, and when college is more expensive than ever, and then we're seeing all of this happen with US-funded weapons, people are upset. And they're connecting the dots more, that this is not something that's happening over there, but this is actually something that's affecting us now, because Republicans love to talk, and many people love to talk about the national debt and deficit spending, but we're not really talking about where that money is going to, the fact that the Pentagon has not passed its audit, and that our priorities aren't straight in terms of how we're investing in our future as a country.
How big a vote of the caucus do you think you guys will be able to potentially get for this massive measure?
I think it's hard to tell, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was quite large, because I don't think this is just an ideological issue. I don't think this is just a lefty thing. I think this is affecting people all across the board. And I think that independent voters care a lot about this too.
In Michigan, obviously it's a state Democrats have won, but President Trump won it twice. How does a progressive make that case to a state that voted for the President Trump 2 times? And how does that message work there?
I mean, I think that what we are seeing is how populist politics can take root, and that really, that there's no, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look on it, there's no monopoly on that. I think that when populism takes on this authoritarian flavor, then we get what we get right now with the president. But I think that when populism is rooted in integrity and responsiveness to people's material needs, I think that we can elect someone that is funded by small dollar donors and is running on a platform that speaks directly to.
Hey, that guy that just asked her that last question, that was that Steve guy, huh? From Agenda Free TV. Kind of looked like him. All right, so that was AOC from earlier today. What up, everyone? Hope you're all having a good day. Let's go see what's up with. Let's go see what else we got. Let's put on. Let's play. Before we move on, let's play this real quick. Oh, Carlo. So that was Donald Trump with his best friend Jeffrey Epstein. All right, let's move on. Let's go check out Jamie Raskin torching Trump.
Court decisions.
Is there any credible new evidence that could emerge that the 2020 election was stolen?
No, this is pure fantasy, of course. He lost the election by more than 7 million votes to Joe Biden, who beat him 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. There are 60 different federal and state court decisions, including by 7 or 8 judges who we appointed to the bench, rejecting every claim of electoral fraud and corruption. There was an effort in 2016 of foreign forces, specifically Vladimir Putin, to interfere in our election. And there was overwhelming evidence brought forward by our intelligence agencies, and Donald Trump rejected that overwhelming evidence. He was the one who did it, and then he openly invited foreign forces to do the same thing in 2020. In any event, we've got safe, free and fair elections in America, and that's what troubles Donald Trump. He wants to try to provoke and manufacture a crisis here that doesn't exist. And at least the reporting suggests that he's going to be pinning it all on China. Well, you can find dozens of references by Donald Trump to President Xi, how he's right out of central casting. He's brilliant. He controls more than 1 billion people with an iron thumb. The authoritarians do it the best. They're brilliant. They're first rate. They're first class. I mean, come on. It's very clear that he envies the authoritarian and totalitarian leaders of the world, especially the communists like Kim Jong-un, who's his favorite correspondent, who he sends love letters back and forth to. So that's the kind of society that he wants. But the good news is that the vast majority of Americans across the political spectrum are standing up for our democracy and our freedom and our free and fair elections.
Yeah, Congressman Raskin, you just mentioned something I wanted to bring up, which is that it was not long ago that President Trump actually invited foreign interference in our elections. He said that in 2019, essentially saying, well, in a scenario, hey, if there's some type of interference I'd like to know about, I'd like to hear what they say. So the fact that he's coming full circle now and thinking that foreign interference is some horrific thing, wasn't that long ago where he wanted it as always it helped him. All that being said, I'd like to bring the conversation over to Todd Blanche, and as he continues to move through the Senate in an effort to become Attorney General. It's now come to light that he has really been in charge of a significant program inside the White House to weaponize the Department of Justice. The New York Times talks about it like this. Emails show Blanche's role in Trump's retribution campaign. Todd Blanche oversaw senior Justice Department officials pursuing politically charged investigations, convening reoccurring meetings of the so-called weaponization working group, and committed departmental resources to advancing President Trump's efforts targeting political opponents, election administration, and other high-profile vendettas, said Sheldon, executive director of the American Oversight, which obtained the documents through a FOIA. Talk about how dangerous Todd Blanche is if he were to become the permanent acting Attorney General.
Well, it's very clear that he views himself as Donald Trump's personal lawyer and a political lawyer at that. I mean, take the Epstein files, where he oversaw the production of the Epstein files, and he repeatedly failed to redact the names of Epstein victims that were supposed to be redacted. And then he has concealed around 2 million documents, refused to release and produce 2 million documents that were required by federal statute, by the law that we passed in Congress. So he's participated centrally in that cover-up. He infamously went and spent all that time with Ghislaine Maxwell just to make sure that she didn't have anything untoward to say about Donald Trump. And when he was satisfied that she was no threat to Donald Trump, what do you know? She got transferred to the cushiest, prison camp in California, which they call Club Fed, and
yeah, okay, critical, says the MAGA cult member, says the low IQ MAGA cult member.
All kinds of special perks afforded to her there, including meals brought to her cell, special communications privileges, special workout privileges, and so on. It's an outrage. I mean, to our knowledge, there's no other convicted sex offender in the system who's been placed at that prison. And they have not denied or rejected that. So that's the kind of, Attorney General.
It's basically the Trumpstein files. His name's in there over 1 million times. I mean, he's pretty much the ringleader. His name's in there more than Epstein, more than Jesus is in the Bible.
He's shown everybody exactly what kind of Attorney General he would be. He moved to vacate the convictions of Proud Boys and Oath Keepers who were convicted of seditious conspiracy, which means conspiracy to overthrow the U.S. government and put down the U.S. government, and he had no problem doing that. Donald Trump.
I mean, from what they've released so far, it's Donald Trump has a nipple fetish.
in that mass pardon he gave would not go that far, but he was able to get, or Attorney General Blanche decided on his own just to move in court to vacate that conviction. And even the Trump-nominated judge to the court said he had to go along with it, but didn't like it at all and did it seemingly unwillingly. But those are the kinds of decisions he's going to be making on a daily basis, all in service of Donald Trump. I mean, let me just give you one other example. The $1.776 billion slush fund, which he worked out. Yesterday, everybody has got to check out the decision of the federal district court in the Southern District of Florida, because it was absolutely eviscerating, saying that the Department of Justice and Donald Trump had colluded in trying to pull over a fraud on the court in order to perpetrate what was clearly a fraud on the country. They wanted to take $1.8 billion, put it in Donald Trump's pocket so he could turn around and give it, or give some of it anyway, to Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and other convicted cop-beating criminals who all want to play Who Wants to Be a Mega Millionaire. And that's what it's all about. And this guy thinks that that's practicing law. The judge in that case referred the lawyers for bar discipline under Rule 11, saying that they should be sanctioned for what they did in trying to pull a fast one over the federal judiciary. They had no interest, she said, in actually bringing a case to court. They had an interest only in staging this fraudulent settlement. And part of her decision was forbidding them ever to refer to this in court again as a settlement, because she said it was not a settlement, it was just a fraud on the court.
All right, so that was Jamie Raskin from earlier today. Let's move on. Let's go see what else we got. Let's see. Let's check out Nagusa's press conference here. All right, so this is Nagus doing a press conference earlier today.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, thank you for being here today. Today is a very important, consequential day. It's Paul Kane's birthday, so I want to make sure we first recognize Paul Kane. Happy birthday to Paul. Grateful to everybody for being here today. I'm here today with two of our most prominent ranking members in the House Democratic Caucus, Ranking Member Richie Neal, of course, of the prestigious Ways and Means Committee, and Ranking Member Robert Garcia of the Oversight Committee. And we're here to convey a very simple message to the American people. There's a lot going on right now, but something that I believe was lost in the news over the course of the last several weeks is the simple fact that in the history of our country, no president has profited off of public office more than Donald Trump. According to financial disclosures released just a few weeks ago, roughly, I believe 15 days ago, the president's income in 2025 soared to over $2.2 billion. Think about that, $2.2 billion with a B, more than half of which was generated by his crypto empire that him and his family have been building. How do we know that Donald Trump is using the White House to increase his personal wealth? Well, because besides the fact that these brazen self-enrichment schemes are happening in broad daylight, the numbers, the empirical data tell the story. In 2024, before returning to office, Trump's profits were just under a third of what they were in his first year back in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, the American people are struggling. From Massachusetts to California to Colorado, I have the privilege of serving. Under the Trump administration, gas prices are up, groceries are more expensive, affordable health care is out of reach for millions, not to mention the social safety net meant to support families and communities across our country that has been ripped out from under them. At the end of the day, the Congress has a constitutional obligation to hold this president and his administration accountable and to root out corruption wherever we see it. And I am grateful that we have two incredibly talented ranking members who are committed to doing precisely that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to ranking member Richie Neal, the Ways and Means Committee.
Thanks, Robert. So what's remarkable, I think, about what we've witnessed is that it's the disclosure statements which confirm what Joe just got done saying. and that is how far that they have gone to enrich themselves with the number of stock trades on a daily basis. I mean, I don't know when a president finds time to do any of these things. Coupled with the fact that his own statement, when he said that he thought it was unusual, with some modesty for a change, when he said that he was going to be suing himself, meaning that he was the plaintiff and the defendant in a particular case. The lawsuit that came from the IRS was beyond anything I've ever witnessed before. That agency, which is supposed to be independent of the federal government for good in the federal government galaxy for obvious and good reason, because it's supposed to have a reputation that is beyond dispute. That agency controls billions of dollars in taxpayer undertakings, and the president negotiated a sweetheart deal. But the court, as recently as a 3 days ago, they indicated that not only do they think it was a bad deal, but the judge decided that she would bring or recommend charges against the attorneys that were involved because of the manner of which they shaped the agreement. So think about what that so-called settlement meant. It would mean that if Congress hadn't balked at it, that billions of dollars of taxpayer resources would be redirected to the president to settle his own grievances once again. Even though Todd Blanche said that he would not proceed with the fund, the Justice Department has not put that in writing yet, which is a reminder of how broad the authority is that this president has embraced for himself. The settlement also granted extraordinary protections from tax audits and federal investigations. It defies imagination. As I pointed out some time ago in a long-standing case that we had, every president since Richard Nixon had voluntarily released their tax forms. And after a 4-year battle in the federal courts, 4 different courts, 3 different decisions, we were able to bring about that disclosure. That's not how it's supposed to work. That should have been honored based upon the initial request at that time that the Ways and Means Committee had. But there's another important consideration here, and that is that the independence of the IRS is essential. People have to have faith in the IRS. Tax laws are supposed to apply equally, whether you're a school teacher, a small business owner, or indeed the President of the United States. The administration continues to try to bend the institutions of governance to their will for the purpose of advancing his own interests. And this latest decision from the court in Florida, where the judge really took a vigorous position, I think reinforces what I've just said. This court has spoken, and now Congress has a responsibility to continue to demand clear accountability. And if we don't put our eyes in scrutiny of these matters, it ill serves our constitutional function, and it allows this enrichment that we're witnessing to continue. The American people deserve more, so thanks to Joe Neguse for doing this.
Thank you, and I want to first thank Assistant Leader Neguse for bringing us together. Now, we have said that this is the most corrupt president in American history. That is absolutely true. And we've also now disclosed, of course, the $2.2 billion that the press and the media and the public knows about, where Trump has essentially enriched himself and, of course, his family. Now, whether you're a president, member of Congress, or anyone, this is unacceptable, it's corrupt, and it's certainly illegal. Now, as Americans are struggling with gas, groceries, the cost of goods, paying the rent, Donald Trump and their family are enriching themselves, in particular with this corrupt crypto scheme. But it's important to also put that in context. The crypto scheme might be the most blatant corrupt thing that the folks and people in the community can see, but we're also not seeing are the real estate deals being done by the sons. We're also not seeing the direct work that Jared Kushner is doing to enrich himself and his family with an investment fund that the Saudis pumped $2 billion in. We're not seeing the corruption of selling pardons, the corruption of selling pay-to-play at the White House, literally ticketed events at the People's House. And so whether it's the crypto scheme, whether it's the real estate deals, whether it's the selling of pardons, whether it's the sons enriching themselves off real estate deals after their father's doing diplomacy, all of that comes back to a White House that is centered on enriching themselves and at the same time taken away from taxpayers. And as they continue to give tax breaks to the ultra rich in the largest corporations and enrich themselves and their family, the American public is suffering. They can't afford the groceries. The American public can't afford to pay the rent. And yet Donald Trump is getting infinitely richer. As it relates to the crypto scheme, we should also be clear that it's a clear violation of the Constitution. And it's clear that Donald Trump is going to continue to put these kind of schemes in place so he can enrich himself and his family even more. I know that our committees, whether it's Ways and Means, whether it's Judiciary, whether it's Oversight, will continue to investigate all levels of corruption, but especially this crypto scheme as well.
Again, I just want to echo the remarks of Ranking Member Garcia and Ranking Member Neal and appreciate their steadfast leadership and their ability to ultimately get to the bottom of the pervasive self-dealing that is happening at the White House. Again, you may be asking why we're having the press conference today. And again, it is very simple, that in a very fractured media environment and ecosystem that we all find ourselves in, it can be difficult sometimes to understand the intensity of the corruption that's happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And it is important for every American watching to understand that the only person in America who's getting richer these days is Donald Trump and his billionaire sycophants that he surrounded himself with in the cabinet. We have two ranking members here who intend to get to the bottom of it. And that's precisely what we'll do in the coming weeks and months and hopefully in the 120th Congress. With that, we'll take some questions. Max. I would just say more broadly, we are a big tent party with a wide, diverse range of views about any number of issues, both domestic and foreign policy related and geopolitical, of course, including this particular amendment that you referenced, which we'll, of course, be voting on in a couple hours, I guess, on the House floor. And my view is that notwithstanding policy differences we might have and where folks may land on a particular procedural amendment, we're all undergirded by our shared values. I think that was true yesterday. I think it will be true tomorrow, irrespective of this particular vote. And in terms of how I vote, you'll soon see. Yes, sir. I don't think there's any questions as to their goal. I would echo the sentiments that were expressed by both Leader Jeffries and by Whip Clark with respect to the portions of their respective statements touching on the sheer political lens by which House Republicans are approaching not just this particular amendment, but any number of amendments that they've made in order in the Rules Committee. There were a wide variety of amendments that were submitted by House Democrats. As you know, I serve on the Rules Committee. And I happen to know a bit more about this than maybe other members. And I can tell you that this Republican Congress has presided over the most closed Congress. And Paul can test our institutional memory on this point, than in the modern history of the U.S. House. So there's, of course, a political reason as to why they chose to make this particular amendment in order. And that is true of other amendments that they decided to make in order. Paul? Don agrees with me. Go ahead. Yeah, I would say that to your larger point, Paul, I certainly don't disagree that there is so much corruption happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The record is so replete with abuses and self-dealing and kickbacks and the like that it can be difficult for citizens, for voters, and for members of Congress, I think, to kind of zero in on a particular example that is far more distasteful than all the others. What I would say is that, in my view, respectfully, the connective tissue behind all of it is that Donald Trump is making money hand over fist. That at the end of the day, him and his family and his cabinet members are all making ridiculous amounts of money. In some cases, they are trying to subvert the legal system to actually procure taxpayer dollars. In the case of the slush fund that obviously, thanks to Richie Neal and other efforts, we've been able to subvert for the moment. In other cases, it's various other forms of corruption. But yes, I'll turn to Richie Neal and to Robert.
So I intend to put on an affirmative agenda if we're successful in November, for sure. Because I do think that there's an oversight obligation, but there's also some actions that have to be taken.
Hey, what up, Rich Shot? Hey, good to see you, man. Oh man, I'm sweating over here, dude. I think in about an hour or two, it's gonna finally cool off so I can walk my dog. I might take him to Santa Fe Dam. But check it out. They sell these at 7-Eleven, 2 for $4. It's a strawberry lemonade. They're pretty good. But yeah, what up, everyone? Hope you're all having a good day out there.
Of the pandemic, it was a very affirmative agenda that we put out, and if it were at a different time, perhaps, then many people today would spend their time with their thumbs rather than analyzing what was done. Then,
man, it's crazy hot, Rid. It's like sweating over here. I feel like, you remember the movie Kids? Remember where they're all kicking it and it was all hot and they had like the spray bottle? That's how it feels. I actually have one of those. Check it out. I got one of those like fan spray bottles. Yeah, Carlos taking a nap right now. But yeah, it's definitely a hot one.
I think they would conclude that periods like the one that we're in, I hope, are an anomaly, but I do feel very strongly that we should have an affirmative agenda that we intend to put forward. And I think rather than doing what I call now the makeup mark.
Yeah, for sure. That fan comes in handy. My homegirl, she uses that all the time. But yeah, I'm just glad that we're nowhere near that smell from like Boyle Heights. I heard it stinks real bad out there because of the warehouse fire. So there's like 80 million pounds of just rotting meat on these hot summer days. I can only imagine how bad it smells out there. I heard there's a lot of flies too.
Just trying to fill space.
But in like the Facebook groups I'm in, people are saying they smell it in like Los Feliz, like Atwater Village, as far as like Atwater Village, Glassell Park. So I think the smell might be expanding.
To satisfy, once again, the president's agenda. I think it's very short-sighted. So I'm going to reiterate the Ways and Means part. Democrats in our caucuses, we talk about this repeatedly. We intend to have an affirmative agenda going forward.
I'll just add that I think caucus-wide, the affirmative agenda is going to be really important with all of our committees. But I think the accountability piece, which oversight is especially going to be leaning into, is very important. And I don't think we should leave corruption unanswered. And so whether it's the direct corruption that's happening in the White House for the family, or whether it's pay-to-play schemes that might be happening at DHS or other agencies, we shouldn't be leaving any of that on the table. And it's important to remind the American public that if you are going to rip off the American taxpayer and you're going to try,
I've kicked it in that neighborhood a lot. Back in the day, I've done a lot of jobs over there. It's always been nice. I like those neighborhoods, but it never smelled bad to me. But the smell that's there now, man, I can only imagine what that smells like.
enrich your friends or enrich yourself, then you are going to be held accountable for that. And so I do not think that we need to be leaving some of the corruption for another day. I think all of that has got to be taken on, and we're going to be very committed to that in oversight, but also in working with all the other oversight subcommittees that exist across the entire caucus. And so I think we'll have a very robust agenda on anti-corruption across the caucus.
Paul, one thing that reminds me of the answers that Robert gave and Joe just gave a moment ago. All of a sudden, the Social Security Administration now is hiring people there. And I think a good hard look at Doge for what was done. The denial was there all along. And then we find out that thousands of people were let.
Oh yeah, for sure, Rid. Definitely feel I feel for all the people that have to have to endure all that crazy smells out there.
Oh, so you couldn't get anybody at the IRS or Social Security on the phone to answer your questions. If you visited the office of Social Security, which I did, the desks were all vacant. So I think we need to take a good look at Doge and what did or didn't happen as we had these 23-year-olds.
Those Doge checks, though.
Deciding who should remain an employee of the federal government.
Bottom line, I think, as you've heard from both our ranking members, advancing policies that put money back in the pockets of hardworking American taxpayers and holding those who are corrupting our government accountable are not mutually exclusive. And I think House Democrats have proven the capacity to do both, and we intend to do that.
Hey, what's up, Delvin? What's up, Crazy? What's up, everyone? What's up, All Skate?
Well, I'll just speak for myself. I think it's outrageous and unconscionable. I saw an announcement or something earlier today that indicated some type of betting markets now on flight delays. All right, that's some new frontier, so to speak.
Oh, what's up? What's up, Dumas? All these patriotic politicians right here are calling out Trump and all his corruption.
I think it's untenable in terms of the way in which it's currently progressing. And I suspect that there are other lawmakers that would concur with my view on that front. I would also say, however, there is something that we could do today. The United States Senate, on a bipartisan basis, reached a very simple conclusion that members of Congress and their staffs, their families, ought not be participating in these prediction markets for obvious reasons. And they passed by unanimous consent a resolution precluding them from doing precisely that. They did that with very little fanfare and on a very expedited basis. We haven't done it in the House of Representatives. Why? Because Speaker Johnson refuses to allow a measure in that form to come to the floor. We could do that today, and the American people could then have confidence that their lawmakers and their staffs are not engaging these prediction markets. Right now, of course, that confidence is lacking precisely because Speaker Johnson refuses to do anything about it. And I suspect it's the same reason he refuses to put a stock trading ban on the floor, which of course would follow.
Your question is self-evident because you're saying straight from lose, you're going to be betting on oil futures. Those two are linked. I mean, that's an easy one.
Yes. With respect to the latter part of your question, I haven't seen that reporting, so I'll be opining on it until I've had a chance to look at it. But with respect to the first part of your question, I think what's happening is unconscionable. We saw, of course, the developments in Maine and the murder of yet another person in the streets of Maine. I think that from my perspective, House Democrats have never stopped talking about the need to impose accountability and to exact reforms in ICE. That conversation has been an ongoing one, notwithstanding, obviously, as you noted, the realities of the way in which Republicans refused to ultimately come to the table and to negotiate in good faith. And so I suspect that Ranking Member DeLauro and the members of the Appropriations Committee will lead a conversation caucus-wide over the coming 60 days in advance of the September 30th deadline, and potentially with respect to a CR that may be on the horizon, about not just this important topic, but many others. But Robert, I don't know if you okay. Yes. would say, I mean, I've spoken about that particular issue in response to Max's very astute questions and observations, and we'll have more to say about that concluding the vote and after the vote. We'll see where we go from there. Caitlin. Yes. Welcome back. I don't think so, respectfully, in my view, because, again, I think that there's connective tissue there. That is to say, yes, Americans, Coloradans, as you know, are deeply concerned about affordability and the ways in which this administration has made life more expensive for them and their families. And one of the reasons, one of the driving, the impetus for that is the self-enrichment that's happening here in Washington, D.C. on the part of President Trump and his administration. I think that those are connected. And I think we have an obligation, this perhaps goes back to Paul's question, to further and better illuminate that to the American public about precisely why, at the end of the day, they are being wronged when everything is going up, prices are going up, and Donald Trump is attempting to take $1.8 billion of taxpayer dollars to give to people who are convicted of corruption. Those are connected invariably, and we have an obligation. I think you'll see more demonstration of that connection.
All right, so that's pretty much the end of that press conference right there. All right, let's move on. Let's go see what else we got in the queue here. What up, everyone? Hope you're all having a good Wednesday. Just hanging out, catching up on all the current events, politicians that happened as of today, July 15th, 2026. All right, so this is a press conference. So Todd Blanche had like a hearing today. Part 2 is going to be tomorrow. I guess maybe tomorrow we'll know if he gets confirmed or not. Hopefully he doesn't, because he's an incompetent clown. But anyways, this is a press conference they did after the hearing today. So let's check it out. Please hit the like button. Thanks for anyone that's hanging out, sharing your opinions. And man, it's hot over here. It's like 100 degrees. Sweating bullets. Got some ice waters.
Too many funerals and too many homecomings where not all were present and accounted for, and too many wakes. And I just said when I got here, and Chuck, has seen me do this, no matter who the president is, Democrat or Republican, I'm not going to allow war to be waged by this country via shortcuts or end runs around the Constitution. We shouldn't be sending our kids, our best and our brightest, into harm's way without a vote of Congress. And I've taken that same position with Presidents Obama and Biden, President Trump, term 1, and now President Trump. We told President Trump before this war started it would be foolish for him to do it. There was no reason for the United States, after 25 years of war in the Middle East, to get dragged back in. But he decided to do it, and no consultation with Congress, no real notification of Congress, certainly no seeking of congressional approval. And if you wage a war without a clear rationale, without a clear plan, without allies, without consultation with Congress, guess what? It's not going to go well. And it's going to be tremendously unpopular with the American public. I think I live in one of the most pro-military states in this country. One of the first 14 casualties, Robert Marzon, a warrant officer, was a Virginian from Spotsylvania County, died within a few months of retiring at age 54. Virginians have paid $1.8 billion at the pump just for more gas than they would have paid had President Trump not started the war. And there's all kinds of other inflation. So whether it's the death of our troops, the injury of our troops, the deaths of innocent civilian school kids who get mistakenly bombed on the opening day of the war, the huge cost to the American taxpayer, the huge cost to American family, it's time for this war to be over. Congress has now done something Congress has never done since the War Powers Resolution was passed. A bipartisan resolution in 2 majority Republican houses have said this war is illegal. Withdraw troops unless you get a congressional authorization. You know what? President Trump can break the law, but he can't change the law. The law is the law. Congress has declared this war is illegal. He's breaking the law by continuing the war. And we need to do everything we can, including in the appropriations and NDA process, to find a path back to a ceasefire that's working, to Straits of Hormuz that were as open as they were on February 27, to gas prices that are back what they were before the president on his own started this foolish war. I want to thank Senator Schumer, the Democratic leader, because, when I came to him and said, hey, look, I not only want to vote, but I'm sort of going to want one every week. And we need to just keep hammering on it. And other great Democratic colleagues, there's sort of 6 of the Senator Duckworth and Schiff and Murphy and Gallego and I know I'm part of blanking on somebody. I'm sorry to do that. Van Hollen. We forced this over and over and over again. We had 1 Republican vote, then we had 2, then we had 3, then we had 4, and eventually got the H-Con-Res passed. But we are operating in a very, very unprecedented thing, because Congress has now definitively rebuked this war, yet the president's doing it anyway. And that not only puts our troops at physical risk, it puts people at legal risk. And with that, thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry to be brief. Yes.
The majority leader has said that the NDAA is not a battleground. In the past 65 consecutive times, on bipartisan votes in the states voted against it, voting against the troops, and you're voting against national security.
No, the real danger to national security is this war that's out of control. It's this war that has alienated our allies. It's this war that has totally diminished American power and ability to defend ourselves in the world.
Do you have any concern with members of your caucus stumping with Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan, including Senator Bernie Sanders, who's going there this weekend?
Let me say this. First, Donald Trump is in terrible shape, and the Republicans are in Michigan. His tariffs, his war with Canada, in an economy that depends on cross-border transactions, has made him look terrible. Second, Democrats have always come up with candidates that fit their states. We will do that in Michigan. We will beat the Republican, and we will take back the Senate.
Yes. The president is going to get addressed tomorrow night. The White House has not been very clear about what it may be about, which could be about what he describes as election security. How concerned are you about FRC White House may have to intervene in the upcoming midterms, but beyond?
Well, we're very worried about the White House. They know they can't win the election fair and square. They know the American people are against them. They know that the American people in the House and Senate are favoring our candidates. So we don't put it past them to try whatever they can, but we are prepared. We are red teaming what they might do and how we can combat it ahead of time. We have united ourselves, the House, the Senate, other governors, to make sure that we can combat these attempts to steal the election.
Leader Schumer, on
Later. Yes. Well, I'm going to wait further to hear her at her hearings and the vote. Thank you, everybody.
What would this do to FISA?
Try not to be too repetitive what my colleagues have said, but I do think the first item does warrant being underscored. On the Department of Justice's own website, it says that one of their core missions is to be independent and impartial. And Todd Blanche clearly is anything but independent or impartial when it comes to Donald Trump's agenda, including his agenda of retribution against his perceived political enemies. He's clearly not fit to serve as Attorney General of the United States. He's not independent, couldn't even respond to a very fundamental law enforcement policy or best practice question about the need for independent investigations, credible independent investigations when there's officer-involved shootings, including federal officers, as we've seen a couple times just this last week alone. He says Kash Patel is doing a great job. There's so much that you can point to Just the Department of Justice has been doing a horrible job this last year and a half. And I mention that only because most nominees that come through here will couch their responses with, well, if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed, then I will pledge to do this or I'll commit to doing that. Todd Blanche owns what's been happening with this Department of Justice since day one. He's been the Deputy Attorney General, and since Pam Bondi's firing, he's been the Acting Attorney General. He needs to be an independent Attorney General, not Trump's personal lawyer. The people of the United States deserve better. Our Constitution deserves better. Y brevemente en español. Lo que vimos hoy es lo que ya sabíamos de Todd Blanche. Una persona que es más fiel a los caprichos, los abusos del presidente de los Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, que a la Constitución y al pueblo de los Estados Unidos. Ni le importa la oportunidad de traer justicia a personas que son víctimas fatales a las manos de los agentes de ICE de la administración Trump. Es más, señor presidente, que la Constitución merece mejor respeto, el pueblo merece mejor respeto. Estamos opuestos a la confirmación de Todd Blanche.
Thank you, Senator Durbin. There was a central question in this hearing, and that central question was, who does Todd Blanche represent? Does he represent the person of the president, or does he represent the American people? And time after time after time, it became clear the answer is he represents Donald Trump, the person of Donald Trump. Indeed, he said as much in what I think we can all describe as a Freudian slip. But we see evidence of that in his entire conduct during the year that he's been in the Justice Department, or more than a year. If you look at some of the most egregious examples, you look at this slush fund agreement, this IRS so-called settlement that a court in Florida recently reviewed and found that there was no adversarial relationship between the parties. Basically, the president was negotiating with the president, and Todd Blanche was a lawyer for both. And we saw this when I asked the Attorney General, who wrote that IRS settlement agreement? Who wrote that one paragraph, broad, expansive, get out of jail free for tax crimes language? Who wrote that? And he acknowledged he didn't write it. And he acknowledged he didn't know who did write it. Now, he thought that it might have been written by the Department of Justice or maybe the IRS, but he didn't know. When you read the language of it, it looked a lot like it was written by the president's lawyers. So you have Todd Blanche signing an agreement of unknown provenance that basically gives his former client, and I would say his current clients, potentially $100 million of taxpayer money in tax liabilities and obligations he may have incurred. And that he could, in respect to the slush fund, represent in prior testimony and again today, that the slush fund is dead, that he could attribute to himself the power to say that when this is supposed to be what he's argued to be a negotiation between two adversarial parties. How is it that he could speak for the other party if he wasn't on both sides of this transaction? This too was raised by the court in Florida when it sent a letter referral to the Bar Association in New York to look at the ethical or lack of ethical conduct by the Attorney General. So time after time, whether it's the IRS agreement, the slush fund, whether it's dismissing cases against insurrectionists, whether it's the department's opposition to the release of the second report on the Mar-a-Lago case, time after time after time, this department under his leadership has taken a position that's not in the public interest. And the problem is this: who is representing the American people at the top of the Justice Department? And the answer is presently no one. No one. There is simply a lawyer representing the President of the United States and his personal interests. And therein lies the danger to the American people.
So today was farcical, and it doesn't take anyone needing to be fully involved in the law to understand and witness what we saw today. And look, the first requirement of somebody in a hearing like this, when you swear to tell the truth, is to tell the truth. And we even saw him trying to bend the truth or avoid answering questions, or even worse, simply not telling the truth. So this is just one take of his lack of qualifications. This was not a job interview. It was more of a performance review because we've seen the kind of leader that's going to be. My colleague Dick Durbin asked him, why hasn't he met with victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? Why hasn't he met with them? And he said, I couldn't. I'm bound by the law. Well, any first-year law student knows that that's just a lie. That's just wrong. And that's what's frustrating about this experience. And during my questioning, he seemed more concerned with Ghislaine Maxwell's safety than what he did to the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein when he released their personal information, their addresses, their phone numbers, and their images. And one has to ask why. Why would he go and have a 2-day interview with Ghislaine Maxwell and then suddenly she shifted into the lowest possible security camp against BOP's Borough Prisons guidelines? Why? Well, clearly this man is acting more as a shield for Donald Trump and other powerful people than he is in acting in the best interest of what's justice. This is just one issue. Time and time again, we have seen that his role and his job is not to uphold the law of the United States of America, but it's to do the bidding of Donald Trump, to be his shield against investigations of his corruption, and to be a sword to go after people that the public knows have done nothing wrong. Literally going after an FBI director for playing in the sand. So I'm sorry, this is a farce. This man is clearly not qualified for this job, but that would be bad enough. Putting him in this position is dangerous. It's dangerous to our democracy. It's dangerous to victims of crime. It's dangerous because he's representing a president that is attacking universities, attacking law firms that don't bend at his knee, attacking my colleagues for doing their constitutional duty. This should inflame outrage with Republicans and Democrats, and indeed it has. Bill Kristol came out against him for how he handled the Epstein files. Former DOJ alumni appointed by Republicans have come out against him. We have seen people across the political spectrum, with the exception of my Republican colleagues in the Senate, who are still doing an advanced form of yoga, bending over backwards to do whatever the president wants them to do. So I'm sorry, this is a dangerous day. We're about to confirm someone of the highest law enforcement in the land who's proven that he's going to use the law against American people. And Americans all around this country are going to be looking at who has got our back, who is going to watch out for us. We're trying to put food on the table, and he's having fancy dinner parties with powerful billionaires when he's supposed to be overseeing their mergers. Who does he represent? Clearly, it's Donald Trump's agenda, and it's not the rule of law and the 340 million Americans. So this day should anger and outrage not partisans, but anyone who objectively wants this nation to stand for something, truth and justice for all its people.
You know, the heart of the question, many of my colleagues have already referred to it, is who does Todd Blanche work for? On with the president appointing a friend, and there's not a question about his competence. But the responsibility that that person who is appointed is for the Constitution and to the American people. It's not to the person who appointed him. And what we have seen with Donald Trump is that he will use any power that he has as president, legitimate or illegitimate, to achieve his narrow goals. And sometimes it'll be something he wants in foreign policy, but sometimes it's something he wants for himself. And the most telling example is this astonishing $10 billion suit that the President of the United States filed against the people of the United States. Now, the outcome was inevitable because his personal attorney, who had made $9 million in his private practice with the president, was now representing the Department of the IRS in a suit against the president. And lo and behold, they came out with a $1.76 billion settlement that gave total authority to the president. It also did give immunity to the president and his family for any obligations that they may owe to the taxpayers of the United States. There was much made about the lawfare. There's no definition of lawfare. It's in the eye of the beholder. There was much made of weaponization. There's no legal definition. Senator Cornyn asked that. Lawfare and weaponization are the political term that's used to attack somebody who does something you don't like. And Todd Blanche is all in. And the person who decides that you have violated lawfare or that you've weaponized your position is the president. It's a political decision. We cannot have a Justice Department that makes prosecutions of American citizens, whether they're in office or not, on the basis of the political preferences of the president. Todd Blanche works for Donald Trump. He does not work for the American people.
Question? Yes. How does one, have you said, what John said about the recent IRS agreement? It says block, but are you merely observers? Or what power does Congress and the Democrats have in Congress? Because presumably you can't block his confirmation today, but what power will you have, given what you said?
Under the Constitution, we have the power of advice and consent in the Senate, and of course that depends on the votes on the floor, how many are there, and which way they come down. I can't predict what will happen. I think what we've said here among Democratic members is pretty clear. What other Democrats feel, what Republicans feel about this situation. I think the questioning by Senator Cornyn really got to the heart of the issue when it comes to Blanche signing that forgiveness of tax liability for the president and his family. It's an outrage. There's nothing like that in history where we had a president and his family and their business interests protected in this way. Perhaps some Republicans will be convinced. Yes.
Do you get any sense that Republicans' minds have been changing, or they may be growing more concerned after today's hearing? Or is it too soon to say?
Well, not particularly, but I won't give up. I think what you find in these hearings is issues emerge, and over a period of time, they either grow into something substantive or wither away. And in this situation, I think there are a handful of issues that are not going to wither away, and whether they're persuasive with the Republicans, we'll have to see. Last question. Yes?
Cross-partisan bills across the country, and controversies that the President noted that is invasive on the issue of files and wants to meet with victims. If Republicans win and support projects, what is your message and outreach to independents and voters about this?
I think the voters of America, including independents and younger voters, certainly know what happened with the Epstein files. The lengths that Congress had to go to force the Trump administration to even find this basic disclosure, as bad as it is. It's an indication of covering and reason. Let them explain the reason. Perhaps they have something. But I think independent voters have to wonder, why in the world won't this man, who is the acting attorney general, sit down with the victims of Epstein? Shouldn't he be on their side first? I think it's pretty obvious. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Dick Durbin right there. All right, at the end of that press conference. So that was a press conference that happened after the Todd Blanche hearing today. So those were the good guys. So I'm afraid to say it, guys, but we're going to have to go do some Chud Watch right now. So we just listened to the good guys. Now we got to go listen to the bad guys real quick, see what they're up to. Let's go see what MAGA grinder Mike Johnson's up to, JD Just Dance Vance, and Donald the Orange Turd Trump, or as he's otherwise known as Benedict Donald, Benedict Bone Spur Draft Dodging Donald. All right, so let's go do a little Chud Watch, and then we'll get back to the good guys. All right, let's start out. Let's go see what's up with this. Oh, and we got Pete Kegsbreth doing some kind of a statement saying he wants high testosterone.
President Trump.
I guess he made a statement saying they're going to start testing for testosterone. LOL. All right, let's go check out MAGA grinder Mike Johnson and JD Just Dance Vance. All right, guys. Here's a couple of losers right here. Just know that everything that comes out of their mouths is nothing but lies.
That's how we're doing. Good afternoon, everybody. We just had a great meeting with the House Republican Conference. We're delighted to have been joined by the Vice President, J.D. Vance. You'll hear from him in just a moment. What we were here to address today, what you're all here to hear about, is we're moving forward with Reconciliation 3.0 this morning.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Dad Fries? That Todd Blanche hearing was off the wall, huh?
After many months of deliberation and discussion and contemplation, the House Budget Committee, of course, is moving forward with the budget resolution that will get us to Reconciliation 3.0. Let me tell you a few of the details about it. Given the Democrats' absolute refusal to work with us on the nation's top priorities, and that includes election integrity and strengthening our nation's defense, we're moving forward with a narrow, streamlined package to deliver on some of America's top priorities. It is a sad situation. This is where we are. Republicans have to do this on our own. So the budget resolution instructs 4 House committees to write Reconciliation 3.0, the bill. Those committees are the House Administration Committee, House Armed Services Committee, House Agriculture, and House Intelligence Committee. Each of them will have an important component part of that. The forthcoming reconciliation legislation sets out to accomplish 2 very important goals. 1, to secure America's elections. We're going to pass the Save America Act into law, as much of that as possible. The Save America Act ensures, as you know, that voters have proof of citizenship to register to vote, and they show a valid ID when they turn up to vote at the ballot box. These common sense policies are supported by 83% of the American people. It's almost a 9 out of 10 public opinion poll in most of the polls that you look at.
That's bullshit.
The second objective is to protect and strengthen our homeland. How?
See, this guy's such bullshit. Nobody wants that Save the Maggot Act, you fool.
We will provide supplemental funding for our troops with the administration's request to support national defense and our farmers. That's very important stuff. The Budget Committee is scheduled to vote this budget resolution out of committee tomorrow, and we will pass it through the House next week. We'll send it to the Senate, and then they will pass it before the August district work period. After the Senate passes the budget resolution, our 4 instructed House committees can go to work to write the reconciliation bill itself. We're looking forward to this process. We intend for this to be a lawmaking exercise, which means the House and the Senate both have to pass the bill. Of course, the president signs it into law. This budget resolution, which kickstarts Reconciliation 3.0, is a process. It's our best shot at enacting our party's top priority legislation, the Save America Act. It is important to the American people. It's important to the future. And there is nothing in this bill that every Republican in Congress cannot proudly get behind. I would say that Republicans support election integrity, our troops, and of course our farmers, and this vehicle will demonstrate all of that once again. We're delighted again to have been joined by our Vice President, who had a lot to say to the Republicans. We are very encouraged. You got multiple standing ovations. It's a good day to be a Republican. Ladies and gentlemen, our Vice President, J.D. Vance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, guys. So first of all, the reason I wanted to come here today is just to give a message of unity to my fellow Republicans. We've accomplished a lot together over the last year and a half. We've got to stick together and accomplish at least one very big thing for the American people, which is the president's priority, the White House's priority, the entire Trump administration's priority is to actually get the Save America Act passed. We have the proudest and in some ways the oldest democracy.
Yeah, these guys are desperate. Look at the looks on their faces. They know they're going to lose. It's the blue wave tsunami coming through, guys. They're going to get wiped out.
Anywhere in the world. 250 years we just celebrated. And yet, if you vote in California, you're lucky if a month after the election day, your vote has actually been counted. We know that we have in certain jurisdictions. We know that 80+% of the American people want you to show a voter ID in order to vote.
This guy's a moron right here. Nobody's voting illegally, you doofus.
Yet there are a lot of big blue states that make that impossible, will in fact criminalize the act of asking for an ID in order to vote. Why would you criminalize asking for an ID in order to vote unless you wanted to encourage and promote cheating. So this is an important priority for the administration, but more importantly, it's an important priority for the American people to save our elections. The way you save America is by bringing election integrity. It's something that matters. It's a shame that the Democrats aren't going to help us get this done, given that a majority of Democrat voters actually want us to have election integrity in this country. But we've got a good piece of legislation to support the troops, support the farmers, and get Save America Act passed. This, of course, is the first step, but it's an important step. We're going to take it together. We're going to be successful, and we're going to keep on working at it from there. Thank you. We'll take a few questions.
Hey, what's up, David? That's hilarious. JD, baby, it's Maybelline Vance. That's a good one. He does have extra eyeliner on today, huh? Look at that. It's all perfect.
Task force.
Probably uses our taxpayer money, too, for that eyeliner.
Republicans, prior to reconciliation being released, they said they wanted to tackle fraud in this bill as a way to help pay for the bill. They found no pay-fors in the bill. Something that's very upsetting. Republicans, do you think this bill should tackle fraud?
Hey, what's up, Al?
Pay-fors in it, and why? And if not, why not?
So we actually talked about this a fair amount in this conversation. So the Anti-Fraud Task Force is catching hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud across a number of programs, Medicare, Medicaid, a number of programs.
Listen to this guy. Dude, it's you and the guy standing next to you and the orange turd. You guys are all the culprits of all this waste, fraud, and abuse. You guys got to look in the mirror.
For our elderly, for people who are down on their luck, who have disabilities, and basically are being stolen from by fraudsters. So we're saving a lot of money, but we're also saving these critical programs for the next generation. That's a good thing. We're very, very proud of it. Ultimately, we decided this legislation, for a whole host of procedural reasons, was not the place in order to codify some of the things that we're doing in the Anti-Fraud Task Force. What we're doing with this legislation is getting Save America through, and of course, getting some critical support to our troops and to our farmers. We decided to do this because we thought this was the best vehicle to accomplish those three things, but we're certainly going to take up the Fraud Task Force, and we talked about actually working with some of our congressional colleagues to make that happen into the future, into the fall.
You mentioned that the administration's top priority right now is passing the Save America Act. Even if it were passed tomorrow, there's not enough time for it to be implemented before voting starts for the November midterm elections. That being said, will the administration support the results of the midterm elections come November, regardless of what they look like?
Well, of course, we're going to support the results of the midterm elections. We think we're going to win, but ultimately that's up to the American people. But we also think we have to do everything that we can to discourage cheating. Because you will hear Democrats sometimes say,
in other words, they have to do everything they can to cheat, is what he's really trying to say.
This line, I can't help but laugh at it. Cheating isn't that frequent in American elections.
Hey, shout out to that reporter though that asked him that good question. Let's listen to that again. That was a good question by the reporter right there.
Elections come November, regardless.
She asked JD Vance straight up about the midterms if they're going to acknowledge it, the results.
Colleagues to make that happen into the future, into the fall.
You mentioned that the administration's top priority right now is passing the Save America Act. Even if it were passed tomorrow, there's not enough time for it to be implemented before voting starts for the November midterm elections. That being said, will the administration support the results of the midterm elections come November, regardless of what they look like?
Well, of course, we're going to support the results of the midterm elections. We think we're going to win, but ultimately that's up to the American people. But we also think we have to do everything that we can to discourage cheating. Because you will hear Democrats sometimes say, and I love this line, I can't help but laugh at it, cheating isn't that frequent in American elections. Any frequency at all is a problem. A single ballot cast illegally in an American election is in fact the theft of the ballot from another American citizen, from an American citizen who deserves to be able to vote. So you're right. You know, the elections, in some ways, the process is already getting started for 2026, but you don't pass a piece of legislation because you think you're going to immediately benefit from it. You pass a piece of legislation because you think the American people are going to benefit from it over the long haul. We have to do it. Save America is not mainly about 2026, to your question. It's actually about saving America's elections well into the future.
Tomorrow, the president's going to give this big speech on the elections. A lot of Republicans here want him to focus on the 2026 midterms and not to relitigate his claims of the 2020 elections. Would you encourage him to steer clear of those unfounded claims that he's actually the true victor of the 2020 elections?
I love these questions, the unfounded claims. You're basically assuming an answer in the very question that you ask. Monty, what I'd say is we can do a lot We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We're doing so many things. We got the one big beautiful bill passed that cut taxes on Social Security, cut taxes on tips, cut taxes on overtime, delivered thousands of additional dollars into the pockets of the average American family. We're very proud of that. It's one of the things that we talked about in there was we need to talk about it more. We need to tell the American people all the amazing benefits that are in those working families tax cuts. We also have a lot of other things going on in the country. The president's going to talk about a number of things tomorrow night. I'm obviously not going to get ahead of his remarks, but we can talk about a number of the American people's problems. We can solve a number of the American people's problems, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
He didn't even answer the question. Man, these MAGA meat-riding politicians are master sidesteppers.
Our House colleagues and our Senate friends to do.
How are you going to get the Senate to pass things like How are you going to get the Senate?
You got it with that. Those reporters were savvy with their questions. Those are some good questions. All right, let's go. Let's go see what else we got. Let's go see what's up with shit, I'm debating whether to watch this Trump. All right, let's check out this Trump little interview he did on Fox yesterday. Let's see what he has to say. Fuck, I you know what? I can't stand it. All right, we're gonna try it.
It's got to remain free.
Man, it's really hard to listen to Trump these days. I mean, it always is, but now it's just unbearable. He just says the same crap over and over again. Nothing but lies.
President Trump says U.S. strikes will continue in Iran, with each day getting worse than the last. He says he's saving energy targets for last and did reiterate that Iran has no choice but to make a deal. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yanks is at the White House where he spoke.
We'll look at Carlo while Trump speaks.
About his plans for the Middle East.
What's up, Carlo? You're up.
Yeah, Brett, good evening. President Trump told Fox News that strikes against Iran will continue tonight.
All right, here's the Trump interview.
Thank you for speaking with Fox News.
We'll look at Carlo and listen to him.
We have seen extensive U.S. strikes against Iran for 3 consecutive nights now. This comes after the Iranians attacked vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. How would you describe what is happening at this moment? Has the war resumed?
Well, I guess you could define it any way you want, but certainly we're beating them up really badly. They have to be beat up. We're hitting them very, very hard. We're hitting every...
Yeah, screw Trump. I can't stand this guy. Yeah, I can't listen to that guy anymore. All right, let's go check out. There's still some good stuff from the good guys. All right, let's go see what's up with. Then there's Pete Kegsbreath. Yeah, I can't stand listening to those fools anymore. All right, let's go see what's up with the homie Jim McGovern. Did some moves today from the House floor. All right, this is Jim McGovern. Yeah, I can't stand Trump anymore. I mean, I never could stand him. But I was able to tolerate listening to the clown just to make fun of him, but now that's not even fun anymore. He's just this just old, broken down, just piece of crap.
North Carolina for yielding me the customary time, and I yield. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the gentlelady from North Carolina for yielding me the customary time, and I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, to all my friends on the other side who have held this floor hostage for weeks on end, let me save them the suspense. Nothing changes with this rule. There is nothing in this rule that forces the Senate to take up the awful Save America Act. Nothing. The majority is simply attaching the Save America Act onto an unrelated State Department funding.
Oh yeah, the MAGA cult member bots are out in full force. I've noticed it for the last few days. They've been out in full force. They unleashed the hounds.
And sending it across the Capitol. The Senate can and will strip it right back out. Everybody here knows that. The fact of the matter is that the SAVE Act is never going to become law because even Republicans know it is a disaster that will make it more difficult, if not impossible, for American citizens to vote. It will make it difficult, if not impossible, for American citizens to vote. So what Republicans are doing here with this procedural move is not some master strategy. It is merely political theater designed to settle another Republican family feud. And if that's enough to flip members who have held up business for weeks, boy, they are cheap dates. What this rule does is bring to the floor 4 bills. The first would make daylight savings time permanent. Look, everybody has an opinion about changing the clocks. I actually support this bill. But for folks getting crushed by rent, groceries, utility bills, and healthcare costs, is this really the best the majority can do? Is this really the most pressing issue before the American people at this moment? Then there are 3 bills Republicans tried to bring up weeks ago before their own chaos brought the House to a standstill. One is a State Department funding bill that cuts funding for American diplomacy and foreign assistance. Another would block the use of a merchant code for gun stores, making it harder to flag suspicious purchasing patterns. And then there is the so-called Take Care of America's Veterans Act. That title is doing a lot of work, my friends. That bill expands some benefits by putting the disability compensation of future veterans on the chopping block, particularly veterans suffering from tinnitus.
Oh yeah, by the way, folks, this is Jim McGovern from earlier today from Capitol Hill.
That deal. In other words, get this: Republicans want disabled veterans to pick up the tab for other veterans' benefits. That's just plain wrong. How hard is it to understand that we shouldn't rob Private Peter to pay Sergeant Paul? And the Veterans of Foreign Wars agrees. They were in the Rules Committee last night. The VFW strongly opposes this bill on behalf of the veterans it represents, and it published a political cartoon to protest the cuts. And what did the Republican chairman of the Veterans Committee do? He and other Republican members sent a letter to the Department of Veterans Affairs asking the agency to review the VFW's accreditation. That accreditation.
Hey, what's up, Colm? I don't think they've ever admitted to murdering all those kids in that school.
Is what allows the VFW to represent veterans before the VA and help them navigate the benefit system. So, disagree with the cartoon? Fine, say so. But do not use the federal government to threaten the VFW's ability to help hundreds of thousands of vets. That sure as hell looks like retaliation to me. Veterans fought for the right to speak their minds. They should not be threatened by their own government for exercising it. But this is what happens when a majority becomes completely consumed by its own dysfunction. Meanwhile, Americans are working hard. They are doing everything they've been told that they're supposed to do. And yet somehow they can't get ahead. And what is this Republican majority doing about any of it? Next to nothing. Next to nothing. And, and one of the bipartisan things that we actually did do to try to bring down housing costs, Donald Trump refused to sign it. He let it become law without his signature because he was angry that the Senate had not passed his voter suppression bill. I mean, imagine that. Think about how screwed up all of that is. Families cannot afford to buy a home, rents keep climbing, and the President of the United States used a bipartisan housing bill as leverage in his fight over election lies. That tells us everything we need to know about this party's priorities. They will move heaven and earth to protect Donald Trump's political power. But when it comes to making life more affordable for regular people, suddenly they can't find the time, can't be bothered. Republicans control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House, they control the Supreme Court. and they still can barely keep the House floor open long enough to do the people's work. Mr. Speaker, the American people deserve a hell of a lot better than this chaos. And with that, I reserve my time.
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentlewoman from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am very happy to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Herodopoulos.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm proud to stand beside you today in support of this good rule and talk about the future of America. And I first have to say this, and one of the things that makes America great is that anything is possible. And I am very optimistic that we'll be.
Oh my goodness. Who's this doofus? Mike Herodopoulos? He's got the Zach Morris hair from Saved by the Bell.
The pursuit of happiness and our mindings improved by care. And that's exactly what we're looking.
I don't know, fast forward this guy. I want to hear some more Jim McGovern. We don't need to hear that clown.
Offset by the bad. I mean, basically, they're saying we're providing veterans benefits by cutting other veterans benefits. I mean, this is a shell game. And that's why the VFW is furious, why they're pissed over this bill, why they've told their membership to contact members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, to oppose it. If this were a tax cut for billionaires, my Republican friends don't care about an offset. If it's a illegal war in Iran, they don't care about offsets. But when it comes to providing veterans benefits, all of a sudden, we got to find offsets. And those offsets that they have found to pay for this are by cutting other veterans benefits. That is unconscionable. That is wrong. That is wrong. And everybody should vote no on that bill. Mr. Speaker, I now would like to yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Ranking Member McGovern, and I could not agree with you more. I rise in strong opposition to this rule for many reasons, as expressed the outrage about what is in here regarding veterans and their deserved, earned benefits. But for my remarks within it, I'll speak to the Sunshine Protection Act. I worry that this bill is repeating the mistakes of the past, and that it is being rushed to the floor without a robust committee process. We tried permanent daylight savings time during the 1970s oil crisis, and it lasted less than a year. The policy was popular until parents realized their children had to travel to school in darkness, armed with flashlights. After 8 Florida children were killed in traffic accidents, the governor called on Congress to end the 2-year experiment early. Over 50 years later, we're making the same mistake again. Please, let's not. And we're doing it with less information. The only hearing on time zones this Congress focused on tourism and golf courses. Members should have been able to speak and ask
Yeah, as much as I'm for the time change and stuff like that, I'd rather it get dark later. I'm kind of against changing it just because I've lived my whole life with it. So it'd be kind of, I don't know. I kind of like for a while it gets annoying, but then you get used to it, and it's kind of nice having switching it up a couple times a year. Right now over here, it's getting dark at 8:30 p.m.
how permanent daylight savings time would affect our health, safety, and well-being. My home state is Pennsylvania. We did just this in April. In a hearing, Dr. Indira, Director of Sleep Medicine Fellowship at UPenn, explained that our body clocks.
Oh yeah, it's hot. It's 100 degrees.
In the evening before we go to bed. Under this bill, Pennsylvanians would wake up in the darkness for months. In some parts of the state, over 100 sunrises would be up after 8 a.m. Disruption in our natural sleep-wake cycle can reduce reaction time, alertness, and other measures of performance and safety. And sleep deprivation leads to a higher risk of serious health conditions like obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, depression, and some forms of cancer. This topic deserves robust debate, not a closed rule. Congresswoman Scanlon proposed an amendment for permanent standard time to do just that, but it was promptly rejected. In closing, for the health and safety of our constituents, I urge my colleagues to vote no on the rule. I yield back.
I reserve.
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentlewoman from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve.
The gentlewoman from North Carolina reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask that we defeat the previous question. And if we defeat the previous question, I will offer an amendment to allow the House to take an up or down vote on an amendment to H.R. 8595, sponsored by Representative Schreier, which would reverse the cuts to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that were imposed by the Trump administration that could have prevented the ongoing outbreak of cyclospora, a parasite that has already infected thousands of Americans.
Oh yeah, Trump's explosive diarrhea disease.
Defunding federal health and science agencies, firing scientists and researchers, and cutting programs that keep us healthy and safe. One of the programs that Trump cut was called FoodNet, and it helped federal and state public officials monitor and prevent outbreaks for 8 different foodborne illnesses, including cyclospora. But after Trump and his Doge goons got their hands on this life-saving program, the government stopped monitoring cyclospora. Well, that was stupid. It was dumb, because our country is now experiencing a full-blown outbreak of, you guessed it, cyclospora. For the sake of everyone's health, I urge my colleagues to defeat the previous question so we can reverse these dangerous cuts. And Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of my amendment into the record, along with any extraneous material immediately prior to the vote on the previous question.
Without objection.
And to discuss our proposal, I yield 2.5 minutes to the gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Schreier.
The gentlewoman from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Ranking Member McGovern, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. Right now, our country is facing a public health crisis that has been created by the Trump administration. From misinformation about vaccines and life-saving medicines to devastating cuts to critical research, along with political litmus tests, this administration is putting Americans in danger.
Trump's out of his mind. He's trying to kill all of us with diseases and firearms, just all kinds of stuff. Starve us to death. Yeah, lock him up for crimes against humanity ASAP.
Specifically, the cuts to the CDC have been disastrous. Our public health workforce has been attacked, and our ability to assess and respond to outbreaks has been decimated. We're now seeing the worst measles outbreak in decades, and the number of Americans affected by cyclospora is rapidly growing in over 30 states. And because of inadequate surveillance, that may just be the tip of the iceberg. Last year, the Trump administration changed the CDC's FoodNet surveillance program, narrowing the number of pathogens under active surveillance, including cyclospora. The health and lives of thousands of Americans are on the line as they contract diseases that the CDC has helped us prevent for years and has screened for years, all because of the actions of this administration. If you are an American right now with measles, this CDC has failed you. As cyclospora spreads, the CDC is not meeting expectations. Communication's been sparse, misinformation's rampant, and real information is lacking. And HHS Secretary Kennedy, as a leader, has been completely absent in helping with any of it. As a doctor and a member of Congress, I am outraged and deeply concerned.
I just did a poll the other day about the Save the Maggot Act. I think I asked, do you guys want Donald Trump Save the Maggot Act in the poll? And out of 2,000 votes, 80% of the people that voted said they don't want the Save the Maggot Act.
To be restored to its previous capacity, because you don't really know how critical our public health service is and our CDC is until there's an outbreak and we can't manage it. And every death from preventable illnesses should be laid at the Trump administration's feet until these changes are undone. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentlewoman from North Carolina will now be recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume. Mr. Speaker, the American people need to take note of the amount of rhetorical smog emanating from the other side of the chamber, because it's obscene. Our Democrat colleagues continue to weave together an entirely disingenuous and deceptive narrative that Democrats are the ones standing at the forefront of the conversation when it comes to supporting our nation's veterans. That has never been the case and will never be the case. If Democrats truly cared enough about veterans, they'd spend their time supporting.
Nobody cares about you, you old hag. We're gonna forward you. Bunch of nonsense. You should be in old folks' home. All right, let's go. And nothing against old hags, but she's an old hag. All right, let's see what's up with Jim McGovern.
Because they are, and they should be, especially on these veterans issues. The bottom line is that the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, strongly opposes the disability benefit cuts that are included in the proposed Take Care of America's Veterans Act. And I ask unanimous consent to insert in the record the entire statement of the VFW and their strong, strong, strong opposition to these cuts.
Without objection.
And you know what? I trust the VFW more than I trust the Republicans Millionaires Club that basically populate the United States Congress on their side in this chamber. And the VFW is saying we can do these benefits without punishing other veterans. And I find it amusing.
All right, let's go check out something else. Let's go see what's up with there was another press conference that happened today. It was regarding the Epstein survivors. Or you know what? Let's check out Thomas Massey.
Madam Chair.
All right, this is Thomas Massey from today. This is Thomas Massey introduces amendment to cut off Israel aid on House floor.
Aid to the Chair, my amendment is simple. It strikes $3.3 billion of foreign aid to the country of Israel from the State Department funding bill. You know, we've got $39.4 trillion of debt. We've got needs at home, which include our infrastructure, our roads and bridges. We've got a shortfall in that fund. We've got our locks and dams that we're perpetually trying to figure out new funding mechanisms to come up with. And we've got homeless veterans. And we're sending more money to Israel in this bill than we spend on homeless veterans in this country. Just to put it in perspective, there are 3,000 counties in this country. And if you divide that into 3 billion, that's $1 million from every county. This is not a significant amount of money that is going overseas. So I think we should stop it. We should put them on a diet. They're the biggest welfare recipient of the United States and have been for many years. $310 billion has been received by Israel from the taxpayers of the United States. That's in inflation-adjusted dollars since we've been giving them money. And that's why I think this amendment is important, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Chair, when I rise to claim time in opposition to the gentleman's amendment.
And it's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. As chairman of this subcommittee since 2023, I'm proud to be a leader in this body in providing unwavering support to our friend and ally, Israel. Especially.
All right, I thought it was going to be a bigger Thomas Massey speech. All right, let's go see what else we got. Yeah, let's go check out that Epstein survivor one. Where's that one at? All right, here it is. What's this? All right.
I didn't see here today, Danny Bensky. Specifically, she was my State of the Union guest earlier this year. She's a New Yorker. She's a brave lady, and she's a survivor of Epstein's heinous crimes. Danny and all the survivors here are some of the most courageous people I've met.
Fast forward Schumer. I already heard enough Schumer today.
finally? Baloney is all I got back from him. Oh, they may have a long. I thank Senator Schumer for joining us, and especially thank the people who really make the difference. Their arrival and participation in today's committee hearing was the first issue that I raised with Todd Blanche. What I was looking for was the word yes. I asked him over and over, will you meet with them in 30 days? Will you get this done finally? Baloney is all I got back from him. Oh, they may have a lawyer. If they have a lawyer, that's a problem. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. For those of us who practice law, it's not unusual at all for a client to have a lawyer by their side and the Department of Justice to have their own attorneys in the room. What is the big deal? What was going on there? If you took a listen to what Blanche had to say, he at one point said, well, the president signed this bill as if he wanted to. The reason this bill was introduced, forced through the House, remember it took a special election to pass it in the House and then to pass in the Senate because no one wanted to be on the record at that point. Took all that effort because the administration and the president and Blanche were resisting us every step of the way. And they were resisting us because there's something in those files they don't want America to see. That's what it boils down to. And we know what it is. It involves some people that will be embarrassment to them. Well, we pushed it today, and I think very publicly, and I hope it is reported. I thank those survivors who were here and sitting in the audience and who witnessed this display by Todd Blanche. I agree completely with Senator Schumer. Blanche is first and foremost this president's personal attorney. And this president has clearly sent the message out. He does not want full disclosure of what this investigation determined. Well, we're not going to quit until we put the pressure on and get that job done. I've got a colleague on this committee who is an excellent, good friend, and I'm glad he's joining us, Peter Welch from Vermont. Peter?
Thank you. I'm going to make a clothing comment. I love your t-shirts. It says it all. I was trying to figure it out, but it's all the redacted stuff in there. So it really does send a good message. The other thing, this is a depressing day. In some respects, we spent hours getting no answers from a person whose main qualification is that whatever it is the president wants him to do, he will do. And whatever it is the American people necessarily are entitled to have your attorney general do, he will not do. But it's an uplifting day. I can't tell you what it's like for me to come in and meet all of you. I mean, I'm in the Senate side. I haven't been involved in the combat that you've been involved with, but I've been following it. I've talked to colleagues. I've been reading about it. I've been horrified about it. But this is the first time I've been in the room with real Epstein survivors and with real supporters of those survivors. And it's so inspiring that you have seized control of your future, that you've come from a situation where you were isolated, where what you suffered, you had to suffer alone, where it was not really possible for you to talk about it or share it. It was not that you had people around who could be empathetic or understanding, where you had to go through this whole period of time where it was your fault, and where you had to go through this whole period of time when, are you exaggerating? Where you had to go through this whole period of time that there was essential denial or disregard or non-response. And each of you individually had to somehow find a way to find others who did understand. And then you had to go through that incredible effort in the House to get some champions over there and to get others who took seriously, well, what did happen? Where actually you could be heard. And isn't that something all of us need in life? To be heard, to be seen for who we are, and not to be defined as some victim? Because what you're doing is defining yourselves as powerful people with agency who, working together, can live that wonderful good life that all of us aspire to. So I just want to express to you as a citizen my incredible appreciation for the courage you've done, the empathy you have for each other, and the mutual support you've provided. It is an inspiration to all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think this list has probably changed a few times. Make sure
It has, but Andrea is first.
Andrea.
Yes. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea Sterling, and I'm a Jeffrey Epstein survivor. In most sexual abuse cases, people don't get to know the predator, the files, or all his victims. Yet the entire globe has access to the Jeffrey Epstein files, billions of people, and yet we still haven't got any answer. Not millions of people, billions of people. And speaking of billions, how does the DOJ prioritizes taking billions from Americans to put Trump's name all over the US, reminding us survivors that his egotistical projects are a priority over the victims from poverty, victims from war, victims from ICE, and victims from the Epstein files? How does that represent justice? My mom brought me to the US when I was underage, and I remember little by little falling in love with the American culture. The American culture is beautiful. Americans are hard workers, sharp, resilient, innovative, and have a strong sense of justice, or at least that's what I thought. What happened? What happened to the United States? The United States today is a chaotic place, not a peaceful one, unless you live in a bubble. As an American and Jeffrey Epstein survivor, I wouldn't want Todd Blanche to represent the justice of this country. Todd Blanche, this is a message like directly to Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche, don't take that position as General Attorney of the US. That role requires clear answers that you haven't been able to give, and that role requires a lot of pressure and connection from normal people. I think you're clearly great at representing powerful figures, but not us, normal American civilians. We urge Senators Thom Tillis and John Cornyn to vote no on his confirmation as Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Denise is not here, and Ashley McBride's not going to speak. I'm Laura Blue McGee. I said it really fast. Laura Blue McGee. And first, I want to say a couple of things. Thank you to World We. Without you guys, we couldn't do this. So thank you so much. And my sisters and my brother, thank you. I love you guys so much. So I went public in November of 25, and without them, we are so much stronger together. And I'm so happy to walk this journey with him. Jeffrey Epstein and those who enabled him stole pieces of our lives. We have spent years surviving the unspeakable, rebuilding, healing, and fighting to be seen. Our lives, our safety, and our dignity are at stake. We oppose the confirmation of Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche as the permanent Attorney General of the United States. Under Mr. Blanche's watch, the Department of Justice has released materials tied to the Epstein investigation in ways that expose survivors, names, medical and financial details, and other identifying information. That should have been protected. For many of us, the DOJ's redactions were not merely inadequate, they were another violation, reopening wounds we had fought to keep closed. We are also alarmed that key investigative leads appear to have been dismissed. Files about Epstein's properties, associates, and networks have not been transparently accounted for in a way that accountability is being pursued. We deserve a complete, unflinching investigation into every person and place connected to these crimes, not a selective release shaped to limit political damage. These failures cannot be separated from Mr. Blanche's prior work and political ties. Before the DOJ, he represented powerful clients and moved in influential circles. Reports that he attended a meeting in the Situation Room
about managing the fallout from these releases force us to ask whose interests are being protected, ours or those of the powerful who fear exposure. Mr. Blanche said he would meet with survivors. Well, we are here in Washington, D.C., and we are ready to meet. Today you were quoted saying, and asked if you were Donald Trump's friend. You responded and misspoke, I'm his lawyer. Hear this now from the people whose lives you would be sworn to protect. You are the American people's lawyer. The Attorney General must be someone who's committed to victims and to the rule of law is unmistakable. Confirming Mr. Blanche now would further erode the fragile trust survivors have in a system meant to protect us. We therefore call on the Senate Judiciary Committee and every senator who values justice to vote against confirming Todd Blanche as the Attorney General. We have carried this trauma for far too long. We will not bear this additional burden of a Justice Department that fails to protect survivors. This is not political rhetoric. It is a plea for basic decency and for a justice system that listens to its most vulnerable. To every senator, and especially Tillis and Cornyn, preparing to vote, listen to us. Please listen to us. Do not let the interests of wealthy and powerful stand between survivors and the justice that we are all owed. We will keep speaking, we will keep organizing and holding accountable anyone who stands in the way of truth. Today, we ask you to do your part. Thank you. Danny.
Hi, everybody. I'm Danny Bensky. I'm going to just riff this a little bit. So I also had the same line that Senator Schumer said. So he stole what I had to say already, which was that that the only thing that we can say for certain is that Donald Trump, or that Todd Blanche is Donald Trump's lawyer. We corrected it to was, but we all know. And I think, we have asked to meet with Todd Blanche repeatedly. Survivors were asking immediately once we found out that Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to meet with him. And we have never heard anything. There was never even a moment of, you can talk to a lawyer or you can talk through this nonprofit. There was never anything. And that radio silence is deafening. He said today that there were no other men. And we know that to not be true. We were in a meeting with Chairman Comer recently, and he literally made 2 referrals in the last couple of weeks. So we know that there's so much information. We've been saying it, we've been screaming it. There's so much information in the files. Everybody loves to say name the names. We have named the names in rooms all over Congress. We have named the names on national television. We did a filibuster at the reading room with redacted files all around us. We have done everything we know how to do. Our government needs to take this seriously. And when he is saying things like that there were participants and that victims might be the perpetrators, like I hear a lot of blame being put back on the victim and crimes not being taken seriously. So our AG needs to do better than that for us. His record has shown time and time again that he's prioritizing mitigating reputational harm over protecting American victims. And we're all victims of crimes here. So he needs to do better. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jess Michaels. I'm a 1991 Jeffrey Epstein survivor. One of the main reasons I ever tell my story is because no one is talking about the 90s. And I just have a short story for you. It's about an investigation that's gone on for 20 plus years with so much evidence that additional agencies like the DEA came in with a task force that titled this case the Epstein Crime Network. 20 years, millions of taxpayer dollars. Literal cartel hunters entered the chat. And Todd Blanche math, would say that was for 2 people. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. 20 years, 6 million files, multiple agencies, millions of dollars in taxpayer money. And that was for 2 people. If any senator votes yes on Todd Blanche for Attorney General, they're signing off on Blanche math. The last thing I want to say is that if all of this is happening while the whole world is watching, what's happening when no one's looking?
My name is Sky Roberts, and I am the brother of Virginia Roberts Giuffre. If Virginia were here today, I believe she would be appalled by what we are witnessing. From where my family stands, it appears this administration, and Todd Blanche in particular, is helping shield the truth instead of pursuing it. Survivors deserve transparency, accountability, and justice. They deserve leaders who are willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads. Let's remember what we already know. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of sex trafficking minors. Sex trafficking. That raises an obvious question. Who were those children trafficked to? Survivors and the American people deserve answers, not silence. We are also deeply concerned that the only active investigation in the United States into these matters is being impeded by a lack of cooperation with the New Mexico Attorney General's office. I think every American should stop and ask themselves a simple question. Why? If the goal is justice, if the goal is identifying everyone responsible for exploiting children, why wouldn't you cooperate? Morally, why wouldn't you do everything possible to help investigators uncover the truth and hold every perpetrator accountable? So when I ask, is this someone we want as the Attorney General of the United States? I'm not just asking about qualifications, I'm asking about character. I'm asking about moral leadership. Because the Attorney General's first duty should be to pursue justice, not to stand in the way of it. And when people refuse to cooperate with the only active investigation into one of the largest sex trafficking operations in modern history, it naturally raises questions. Todd Blanche, if there are truly no investigative leads, I implore you to read Virginia's under oath deposition and review the names that she named. She wasn't only trafficked to Ghislaine and Epstein. She was trafficked to some of the world's most rich and powerful. The ones you continue to defend by participating in this cover-up. Plainly put, this is not a Democrat hoax. My sister and these survivors are not a hoax. Virginia once wrote in Nobody's Girl, I hope for a world in which predators are punished, not protected. Victims are treated with compassion, not shamed, and powerful people face the same consequences as anyone else. I yearn too for a world in which perpetrators face more shame than their victims do. Those words were not written out of anger, they were written out of hope. We don't live in that world yet. And if Todd Blanche is confirmed, I fear it will send a message to survivors that once again, the rich and powerful are treated differently, while those seeking truth are waiting for justice. My sister spent her life fighting so that no survivor would have to stand alone. We owe it to her and to every survivor to keep asking the questions that still haven't been answered and to ensure that justice is never determined by power or privilege or how many zeros are at the end of your bank account. Thank you.
My name is Amanda Roberts, and I am the sister-in-law of Virginia Roberts Giuffre. And I want to say that the feeling in the room was palpable. There were many moments where each of us turned to each other and couldn't believe the remarks that were coming out of the man who wishes to be the Attorney General of the United States. He has made it very clear who he's here to protect, and it is the rich and powerful. I want to speak directly to the American people. This is about corruption. It isn't just about a singular instance of abuse. It is about choosing who our leadership is, what direction our nation will be headed in if we decide to choose a former prosecutor who has looked at the largest investigation against sex trafficking and said that there is nothing to see here. That speaks directly to his incompetence or unwillingness. I would implore the senators who are sitting down and maybe wavering on their decision. I would ask that you think of your family. I would ask that you think of your children, your sisters, your mothers, your aunts. What would you want for them? Would you want a weak attorney who says, no, they will not prosecute because the people who have harmed them are rich and powerful? Is that what you would want for them? What you want for your family should be what you would want for the American people. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Charlene Rochard, and I'm here today not just as an Epstein survivor, but as a mother, a legislative advocate, and a woman who is advocating for justice that should have never been delayed and mishandled. And that is why I'm asking the United States Senate to oppose the nomination of Todd Blanche as Attorney General. Under Todd Blanche's leadership as acting Deputy Attorney General, trust was broken when my identity was exposed. Former Attorney General Pam Bondi publicly stated that Todd Blanche oversaw the DOJ's work on the Epstein files. That wasn't a simple mistake. That was a failure that put me and other survivors at risk. I believe I'm speaking for all survivors here. We are deeply frustrated. And I feel that frustration.
And Donald Trump was over there trying to say Epstein was a hoax. What a scumbag Donald Trump is.
Boiling over personally as I consider the fact that Todd Blanche chose to hold private, high-level meetings with associates of Ghislaine Maxwell, meetings that happened quietly and behind closed doors. That is not how justice should be handled. To us, that feels like a personal insult. It feels like betrayal. And it is more than deeply troubling that Todd Blanche was in the Situation Room while the Epstein files were treated like a public relations problem instead of a pursuit of justice. During Blanche's oversight, the release of the Epstein materials was marked by some deeply questionable legal choices, over-redacting co-conspirators, withholding grand jury documents, refusing meaningful transparency, and releasing files that expose survivors' identities. These are real harms with real consequences. And when you add the conflict of interest that Todd Blanche brings with his past role defending Donald Trump, someone who was publicly connected to Jeffrey Epstein for years, the picture becomes even clearer. The Attorney General decision should be based on ethics, trust, and the integrity of the justice system. If someone has defended a powerful associate of Epstein, how can survivors believe he will aggressively pursue justice against Epstein's network? Let me tell you, we don't. So the question before the Senate is simple. Has Todd Blanche earned the trust required to lead the Department of Justice? For me personally, the answer is going to be a hard no. And for Americans who expect transparency, accountability, and courage from their Attorney General, the answer should also be no. Maya Angelou warned us, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Todd Blanche has shown us who he is through private meetings with co-conspirators, through flawed and harmful document releases, through decisions that expose survivors through refusals to meet with victims, and through conflicts of interest that cannot be ignored. We have to believe what he's showing us. So today, I'm asking the United States Senate, and truly, I'm asking the country to choose a different path. We cannot afford to place the highest law enforcement office in the hands of someone whose record has already damaged public trust and harmed survivors. We cannot afford to repeat history when we have every opportunity to learn from it. Reject his nomination. Reject conflicts of interest. Reject the mishandling of survivor justice. Please choose accountability and leadership that honors the people it's meant to protect, which is you. We, the people, deserve better. The Department of Justice deserves better. Todd Blanche has shown us who he is. Now the Senate must decide who we are. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Wow, it's very hot in here. Woo, I gotta say. My name is Marina Lacerda, and I think some of you may know my story, but I was 3 months away from turning 14 years old when I met Jeffrey Epstein. I was just a child. Jeffrey not only abused me, not only used me, not only manipulated me and raped me, but he also dehumanized me in front of other survivors. And that was very difficult for me to accept as an adult today. This was the worst period of my life, and because of Todd Blanche, I'm forced to relive it again. I finally broke my silence in September 2025. I decided to speak out, and when I did, my survivor sisters and my brother and I stood together. We helped pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act. More was like they had to do it. And under Deputy Attorney Todd Blanche, some of the files were released in accordance with the law. However, they were released without any regard for the survivors. My name was exposed, but so were my phone number, home address, and other personal information. This happened because Todd Blanche failed to properly protect me along with many survivors. I had to change the name on my property, purchase a gun, tint all my windows, and install additional security inside and outside my home. People in my community, my daughter's school, and my daughter's friends started to learn what had happened to me. Blanche has said repeatedly that Ghislaine Maxwell has moved to a lower security prison due to threats to her safety. After the exposure of our private information in the files release, it is my survivor sister and I whose safety was at risk. If those threats were enough to justify Mr. Blanche meeting with the convicted criminal like Ghislaine Maxwell, then shouldn't they also be enough for him to meet with us? Not our attorneys, us. That's who he needs to meet with. The Attorney General is entrusted with protecting the American people from criminals and predators. Confirming Todd Blanche, despite his failure to protect us as survivors of Epstein and his co-conspirators, sends a terrifying message to survivors of sex crimes across the country, that they will not be heard or protected, and their abusers will not be held accountable. Senators Tillis and Cornyn, vote no on Todd Blanche. Thank you, everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
President, any questions with you? If not, let me just say thank you for coming. Especially thank you to the survivors. Amazing act of courage.
All right, so that concludes this press conference with the Trumpstein survivors. May they get justice, but they won't get it if they put Todd Blanche in it, because that guy's a Trump loyalist, and Trump's name's in the Trumpstein files over like 1 million times. All right, let's go see what else we got in the queue here. What up, everyone? Hope you're all having a good Wednesday. Thanks for hanging out. Let's go play something else in the queue. Intermission. After this, we'll go check out a Midas Touch video. All right, let's go check out Secular Talk.
Pastor who's out there saying women shouldn't have the right to.
This is Kyle Kalinske, Secular Talk.
So MAGA.
He's breaking down MAGA Mike Johnson's bizarre press conference he did yesterday.
Slipped up and said the quiet part out loud here. And if I'm being honest with you, this should terrify you. This should scare the shit out of you, what he openly admits to here. So as you all know, the Republicans are desperately trying to get more money for the Pentagon. I mean, they already blew through, $1 trillion budget, failed 8 audits in a row, can't account for 63% of their money. It's basically like a massive slush fund for the Epstein class. They build a bunch of stuff that's outdated that gets wrecked by drones. But they're begging for more money because they want to continue this illegal war against Iran. But he's going to accidentally tell the truth here and tell you what some of this money is also going to go for. Okay? Pay close attention. Listen to what he says. Here we go.
There's been a lot of discussion about what's going to be included in this reconciliation bill. Can you walk through how important and how imminent it is that the Pentagon needs additional funding and what that number precisely is going to be in the
So the question was, can you list the specifics of what the request is for the Pentagon? We've seen it's over $350 billion as a request. And some of this is transformational kind of funding that will help us change the dynamic of the Department of War and make it more efficient and effective. It's already the greatest fighting force on the planet, not even close. But there are some ideas, a real vision on how to improve that even further, to bolster that. You heard the president talk about how he wants to effectively double the funding for national defense. Look, we live in dangerous times. We're fighting communism on our own shores, and we're fighting evil terrorists and tyrants around the world. And we have to be able to protect our national security. So this is not the place to get into the details of that.
Quote, we're fighting communism on our own shores, he says. We're fighting communism on our own shores. In the midst of a conversation about $350 billion for the military. If you connect the dots there, what that seems to imply is we're going to use our military domestically, which is illegal, which is what Trump has tried to do a number of times, but here he's just saying it. We're fighting communism on our own shores. This is at the same time, mind you, that some anti-ICE protesters were sentenced to years in prison. Some of them literally just were handing out pamphlets. They were handing out pamphlets, and they got sent to prison for years. This is insane what we're talking about here. The goal is label anybody and everybody who dissents from the regime as Antifa or as terrorist, and now use not only the ICE budget, which is bigger than most militaries around the world, use ICE to domestically go after people, shoot them, throw them in concentration camps, but now also use the military. He's just admitting it. He's just saying it. So don't say nobody warned you about this, because you were warned about this, and you were warned repeatedly. Ken Klippenstein did phenomenal reporting on this thing called NSPM 7. And NSPM 7 is a whole of government mindset change, right? It used to be back in the day, oh, we're fighting the Soviet Union. So all hands on deck in the federal government to take on the Soviet Union. Then during the war on terror, it became terrorism and Al-Qaeda, right? The new directive is dissonance, is liberals and leftists. That's the new memorandum, okay? And under NSPM 7, they are very open about the fact that if you're anti-American, whatever that means, you're going to be targeted. You're going to be spied on. Your rights are going to be taken away. If you're anti-capitalist, if you're anti-Christian, if you're an extremist on migration, which simply means, you don't want a fucking police state and you don't want to throw people in a detention camp because they've been here for 4 years and they work every day but they don't have a permit, right? They say if you're an extremist on race, in other words, if you supported Black Lives Matter, if you stand up against police brutality, if you're an extremist on gender, so in other words, if you accept that trans people exist and you think they should get health care, they consider you a terrorist or adjacent to a terrorist, and they want to take away your rights. ICE is being used in this way, and now the U.S. military, they're floating using the U.S. military to, quote, fight communism on our shores. Their words, not mine. This is insane. This is insane. So they're very clear about who their enemies are. When will people wake up and realize who your real enemy is? Your enemy, it's the billionaires, it's the fascists, and the warmongers. And you wrap that all up in a pretty little package called MAGA, okay? And they're not playing around, bro. They are not playing around. The difference between us and them is that, yes, I hate them. Yes, I despise them. But at the end of the day, I want them to have health care. I want the criminals to go to prison. Don't get it twisted. The war criminals, the billionaire criminals, the MAGA criminals, they all need to go to prison. But if you're a voter, if you're a regular person, I want you to have health care. I want you to have education. I want you to have higher wages. I want you to be in a union. I don't want you to have to fucking, slave with every decision your fucking boss makes. Okay? That's the difference, is I might not like you. In fact, I might hate you, but I want you to have a decent life. What MAGA Mike is doing here is letting you know what he thinks of us. No, give me $350 billion for the military to crack down on communism here at home. The new Red Scare is here. The new McCarthyism is here. And forget, it's not even just leftists as such. It's also liberals who they will just define as leftists because they see no difference between us. And they're going to throw the fucking book at you. They're going to throw the book at you. They want to take away your rights. You know how people in their coalition, like Pete Kegsbrett's pastor, who's out there saying women shouldn't have the right to vote. I mean, this is a sick joke. This is all a sick, disgusting, pathetic joke. But they're letting you know what the plan is. They're letting you know what the goal is. They're letting you know what this money is for. And there's no excuses anymore. You can't hide anymore. Not a single fucking Democrat should give a single vote to anything in their agenda, because everything is going to be used for nefarious purposes. They're admitting it. They're saying the quiet part out loud here. This is the accidentally telling the truth part. Jesus Christ, man. Jesus Christ. And it's all purposeful. If you don't think it's purposeful, go listen to Stephen Miller talk for 7 seconds and you'll walk away going, oh yeah, this is a plan. They're doing it on purpose. They're doing it on purpose. $350 billion to police communism on our shores, fight communism on our shores. And make no mistake about it. Yes, they consider Zoran Mamdani a communist, Abdul El Sayed a communist. Yes, they consider any left-flank Democrats that win, or even centrist Democrats that win, they're communists. And this is all going to be used as a pretext to try to crack down, steal the midterm, steal the 2028 election, militarize against dissent. They've already done it 1,000 times. Trump has a war on free speech in this country, a war against the press, a war against protesters. They've already tried to deport people who made jokes about Charlie Kirk after he died. They've already, used the power of the state to go after anti-genocide, pro-Palestine protesters. They're not messing around, bro. They're not messing around. They mean it. They mean business. When I tell you they're going after dissidents, they're going after people who are actually trying to make a difference in this world, to make this world a better place, I mean it. And what are they doing? They're going to use all the power at their disposal to crack down on you, try to ruin your life, try to spy on you, try to take away your rights. $350 billion to say we already live in a police state. because they gave over $100 billion for ICE, for a domestic thug gangster army, right? A paramilitary, a Gestapo force. And now they want 1.5 trillion for the Pentagon on top of another 350 billion for right now. And all the while, Trump's out there like, I don't care about, Americans' financial situation. He's out there like, we can't afford daycare. We can't afford to do these things. They're actively kicking 18 million people off Medicaid as they're spending trillions on weapons of death that are going to be deployed against fellow Americans. Man, it is rough, bro. It is rough. It is very atrocious, to say the least. Hey, y'all, do we?
I mean, in other days, in days past, you would hear stuff like that and you'd be like, oh, none of that's happening. But once you put together all of Trump's moves,
Many do it
together, it's like, oh yeah, these guys are sinister. They're up to something. All you can really do is just go vote, just stay in shape, just be ready for whatever, and just be happy, stay positive. And at the end of the day, I'm actually gonna probably take a little step back from politics for a while because I'm going too hard on it for a minute here. Probably go like a week without it. But if, I don't know. For me, it's like with the people, they're murdering people on this, innocent people. They're just kidnapping people and stuff. It's like hard to ignore. Can't really just go I don't know. Some people can just go on about their everyday life and just watch a baseball game like nothing's happening. But I mean, you gotta have a balance, Gotta get out there. I'm actually gonna walk my dog pretty soon. Get out there, get some fresh air, enjoy a sunset. But anyways, let's go check out one more video before I dip out. Let's see. All right, let's go check this out. All right, this will probably be better than watching the Donald Trump video. We'll just watch Ben Meiselas break down the Donald Trump video he had today.
Press after a disastrous event that he held in.
All right, this is Ben Meiselas from Midas Touch breaking down Donald Trump's disastrous summit that he participated in today in Pennsylvania.
Trump just ran away from the press after a disastrous event that he held in Pennsylvania. This as the United States is further escalating its attacks on Iran. We're seeing massive strikes by the United States military. As I am recording this video, we're also seeing a very strong response from Iran. New explosions are heard in Bahrain. New explosions are...
Hey, what's up, LB? Yeah, for sure. Midas Touch is awesome.
In Kuwait, new explosions are heard in Erbil, Iraq. Iran is responding. Let me show you as Donald Trump runs away from the press after he's asked a very simple question. Are you giving Iran any deadlines? And then Donald Trump goes, I don't like giving deadlines. They better behave. Donald Trump, who constantly sets arbitrary deadlines, says, I don't like giving deadlines. And then he just runs away from the press. Watch for yourself. Here, play this clip.
I don't like giving deadlines, but they pretty much know. They know the story. They better behave. President not spending too much time outside because it is 97 degrees in our area right now. But the president
now, we're learning that as part of these U.S. strikes, it does appear that the United States missiles struck near a hospital in Ahvaz area in Iran where there are cancer patients, especially children who are receiving chemotherapy. The hospital had to be partially evacuated there as the Trump regime strikes took place very close to that hospital. Trump regime also striking in Karg Island and Keshem and nearby. You're seeing a lot of wildlife, like over here. You're seeing some of the deer of Karg Island taking refuge on the streets after some of the explosions right over there. As I noted, Donald Trump held this bizarre press conference before, just kind of running away from the press at this presser, Donald Trump says that Iran wants to settle so badly, they really want to make a deal. Here, play this clip.
And they want to settle so badly. They don't like what we're doing. And they do want to settle. We'll find out whether or not we settle with them or we just finish it off.
And then after saying they want to settle so badly, he also says, we'll have Iran defeated soon. They'll be defeated very soon, he says. Here, let's play this clip.
Booming, and we'll have Iran defeated soon. They'll be defeated very soon. And then I guess it'll be even better. But even during this, it's been amazing. I mean,
now the Wall Street Journal is also reporting how Donald Trump and his despicable regime are leaning towards expanding U.S. military operations in Iran, including ground troops, including bombing what they believe to be covert nuclear sites, including bombing civilian infrastructure. Now, just if you go back through this past week, you'll see the reporting that I did where I talked about ground invasion, because I saw where the U.S. was bombing, so it was obvious to me that they were prepping for a ground invasion, or special forces at least. And then Donald Trump has been talking about bombing Pickaxe Mountain. It's an area in Iran where there's believed to be a nuclear program perhaps taking place there, but it's very deep underground. Even bunker busters can't get to it. That would certainly be a massive escalation. And the IRGC has said, we will not back down. And if the Trump regime continues to escalate, we'll continue to escalate. And they've said there are many other stages that we have prepared in the offensive that we're planning, which to me is, of course, a reference to shutting down the Bab el-Mandab Strait in the Red Sea. Going back to that presser, Donald Trump says that the economy during this war has been absolutely amazing, he says. It's great and everybody's thriving and it's amazing and the economy in the U.S. couldn't be better right now. Here, play this clip.
It's been amazing. I mean, to think, so I call it a military operation, but I call it whatever you want. It's incredible. It hasn't made a dent. A lot of people thought oil would go up to $350 a barrel, and today it's at $79. A couple of days ago, it was at 68. It went up a little bit because I had to take tough action because they did not obey what they're supposed to obey. I mean, they just didn't do it. So we took a little action, but it'll all, when that settles down, I think you're going to have $55 oil, which is all great for what you're doing, maybe less than that.
Then he says, it's like COVID. Remember how good of a job I did in COVID, he says? I don't get enough credit for the great work I did in COVID, he said. Here, play this clip.
Heck with COVID, but even including COVID, we did a great job in COVID. We never got credit for it, but every country was ripped apart by that disaster. We know where it came from. It came from Wuhan. And I said that we were all ripped apart. And China got hit very, very hard. It was delayed. They got hit very hard at the end.
By the way, the parallels there are also very clear, right? Donald Trump saying, like a miracle, COVID's going to go away. There's only going to be 2 cases. It's going to go away. Thankfully, at least for COVID, Donald Trump lost the election. We had someone who responsibly dealt with it in former President Biden. But Biden got a lot of crap for difficult economy, shipping issue, all of the economy, because you got to fix it. That's what happens when you actually have to fix it and you don't commit fraud. And then he fixed it, and then Donald Trump is breaking it again. Now, a message just came out from Pete Hegseth moments ago while the U.S. is escalating. This is real. This isn't a parody. This isn't AI. This actually comes from the official Defense Department account. They call themselves the Department of War. And Pete Hegseth says, we will now be known as the High T Department of War, as in high testosterone, and that they will be doing medical analysis on the troops to ensure that they have the appropriate level of T, of testosterone. Here, play this clip.
At the Department of War, we have the most elite warriors on the face of the earth. Every single day, you are pushed to your absolute physical and mental limits to master the profession of arms. We demand your all, and you give it. But while we invest heavily in our weapon systems, platforms, and gear, our most decisive tactical advantage will always be the individual warfighter. We have a sacred duty to maintain that advantage, which is why we must constantly look for new ways to optimize your performance, your resilience, in your long-term health. And to meet that commitment today, I'm authorizing a new screening program for testosterone deficiency for our service members, ensuring you have the right testosterone levels to operate at your absolute best.
Let me interrupt for a moment with a news story that you need to hear. So just recently, the Trump administration bragged about the PJM power grid. It's the largest in the country, moving away from renewables. Energy Secretary Chris Wright posted a chart showing coal, gas, and other
diplomacy and negotiation to achieve and solidify our national
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna dip out. Carlo wants to roll. What's up, Carlo? You trying to roll out? Hey, what's up, buddy? What's up? Sit. Oh, stretch it out. All right, you ready? All right, we're gonna roll out. What's up, buddy? Good boy. Sit. Sit. Sit, boy. Hey. Carlo, sit. What's up, buddy? What's up, buddy? Good boy. Good boy. All right, we're gonna roll out. Are you gonna walk? Yeah, it's a nice sunset right now. But yeah, man, it's a hot one still, but it's nice to walk around now. All right, you guys have a good one. Catch you guys all later. Thanks for everyone that voted. Let's see what the vote looks like. Watch out, Carlo, you're in the way. Hey, later, Aloha Kitty. Thanks for kicking it. Later, Eric Klein. What's up, buddy? Oh, hey. Good boy. All right. Let's see here. So is Donald Trump a piece of shit? And a whopping 62% of you said yes. So that's how the midterms are gonna go, guys. All right, I'll catch you guys all later. Probably do like a Senate hearing later tonight. All right, peace out.